Tonight, we're uncovering the hidden truth about Gringotts and the many secrets the wizarding world's only bank is hiding. This is a fascinating topic, but I'll keep my narration calm to ensure you can still drift off to sleep. Thank you to those of you who've been joining us consistently. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here. And if this is your first night, just comment night 1. Now back to the video. Deep beneath the cobblestones of Diagon Alley lies a labyrinth of cold stone, rushing wind, and ancient magic that has served as the beating heart of the British wizarding economy for over 500 years. To the average witch or wizard, Gringotts is simply a place of business. A grand marble edifice where one exchanges gold for silver or deposits an heirloom for safekeeping. But if you look past the polished floors and the stern faces of the goblins behind their high desks, you begin to realise that Gringotts is not just a bank. It is a fortress, a sovereign territory, and perhaps the most successful long-term deception in the history of magic. We are told that it is the safest place in the world for anything you want to keep hidden, yet its history is written in blood, rebellion, and a series of high-stakes power struggles that have nearly brought the wizarding world to its knees on multiple occasions. Consider the sheer scale of what is kept within those subterranean depths. It is not merely a collection of gold coins. Gringotts houses the collective wealth of an entire society, but more importantly, it houses their secrets. From cursed artifacts that could level a city to the darkest Horcruxes of the most feared dark wizard in history, the vaults of Gringotts are a graveyard for things that the sun was never meant to touch. But who truly controls this power? For centuries, we have been led to believe in a fragile partnership between the Ministry of Magic and the Goblin Nation, a partnership built on a foundation of mutual necessity. However, when you trace the timeline from the bank's founding in 1474 by the legendary Goblin Gringott through the catastrophic economic bubbles of the 14th century and into the modern era of dragon-guarded high-security vaults, a much darker narrative emerges. Why did the Ministry of Magic feel the need to seize control of the bank for nearly 400 years? It took out what was so terrifying about Goblin financial independence that the wizards felt they had to strip away the Goblins' right to carry wands, while simultaneously handing them the keys to every galleon in the country. This tension is the invisible thread that runs through the entire history of the magical world. It is a story of greed and genius, where the craftsmanship of a marginalised race is the only thing standing between order and total financial collapse. The Goblins of Gringotts operate on a code of loyalty and contract that is entirely alien to the wizarding mind. To a goblin, the concept of ownership is fluid. They believe the maker of an object is its true owner, and any sale is merely a long-term rental. Imagine the implications of that philosophy when applied to the gold and treasures held in thousands of vaults. Every time a wizard turns a key, they are engaging in a silent war of perspective with the creatures standing guard. As we descend into the history of this institution tonight, we have to ask ourselves what the goblins are truly protecting. Is it the gold of the Malfoys and the Potters, or is it something far more ancient? We have seen glimpses of the bank's true nature during the most desperate hours of the wizarding world. We saw it during the rebellion of Ranrock in the 1890s, when the bank became a battlefield for ancient magic that predated the ministry itself. We saw it again during the Second Wizarding War, when the bank was transformed into a tool of state-sponsored terror under the influence of Voldemort. Each time the doors of Gringotts are forced open, whether by a rebel goblin or a trio of desperate teenagers on the back of a blind dragon, a piece of the bank's carefully constructed myth falls away. The truth is that Gringotts is a monument to the wizarding world's greatest hypocrisy. They trust the goblins with their lives and their legacies, yet they refuse to grant them basic magical rights. This creates a pressure cooker of resentment that has boiled over time and time again. Tonight, we are going to peel back the layers of marble and myth. We are going to explore the shadowy origins of the bank following the Great Soap Blizzard and the collapse of the 14th century economic bubble. We will examine the brutal security measures that go far beyond simple locks and keys, involving psychological warfare, biological deterrence, and charms that can drive a person to madness. We will look at the lives of the curse breakers who risk everything to reclaim lost treasures, and the goblin bankers who view the wizards they serve with a mixture of professional stoicism and deep-seated disdain. This is a journey into the dark, damp heart of the wizarding world. It is a story about what happens when wealth and magic collide, and what remains when the torches go out in the deepest vaults. Behind every bronze door and every burning dragon's breath lies a story of a contract signed in shadows. The gold is just the beginning. The real treasure of Gringotts is the truth of how this world actually functions when no one is watching. From the grand halls of Diagon Alley to the lightless pits where the oldest dragons dwell, we are going to uncover exactly what the goblins have been keeping from us for over half a millennium. Prepare yourself, because once you understand the true nature of Gringotts, you will never look at a gold galleon the same way again. The fortress of forbidden fortunes is opening its doors, and the secrets inside are heavier than all the gold in the world. Let us begin our descent into the hidden history of the bank that holds the world in its grip. Towering over the north side of Diagon Alley stands Gringotts Wizarding Bank, a colossal edifice of gleaming white marble that dominates the bustling street like a sentinel carved from the bones of ancient mountains. Its facade rises sheer and unyielding, columns thicker than the trunks of thousand-year-old oaks twisting upward into pointed arches that pierce the London sky. You can almost feel the cool weight of that stone under your fingertips as you approach, the air growing heavier with the scent of polished metal and faint acrid traces of goblin-forged enchantments. Wide bronze doors, etched with runes that shimmer like liquid fire in the sunlight, guard the entrance, flanked by armoured goblins, whose sharp eyes miss nothing. This isn't just a bank, it's a fortress, designed to awe and intimidate, whispering to every wizard who passes that their gold is safer here than anywhere else in the magical world. Step inside, and the vast lobby unfolds before you, a cavernous hall where the marble floors echo with the sharp click of goblin boots and the murmur of witches haggling over galleon exchanges. Crystal chandeliers dangle from ceilings, lost in shadow, casting prisms of light that dance across vaulted walls, inscribed with the bank's motto in towering gold letters, Fortius Quo Fidelius, a strength through loyalty. Those words aren't mere decoration. They've seeped into the wizarding psyche like a binding spell, a constant reminder etched into every child's primer on economics and every ministry official's oath. Wizards recite it in hushed tones when depositing heirlooms, drawing comfort from its promise amid the goblin bankers' steely glares. It shapes their worldview, turning potential adversaries into reluctant guardians, fostering a fragile trust that wizards cling to like a Patronus charm against their deepest insecurities. Yet that trust begs the central riddle of Gringotts. Why would wizards, who have clashed with goblins in bloody rebellions for centuries, hand over their life savings, their vaults brimming with family fortunes, cursed artifacts, and secrets that could topple governments, to beings they openly disdain? Goblins, after all, craft wands superior to any wizard's make, forge blades that never dull, and delve into magics forbidden to humans. Yet they're barred from owning wands themselves, treated as second-class hoarders rather than equals. The fortress's marble walls seem to pulse with this unspoken tension, every polished surface a testament to wizard greed funneled through goblin precision. Founded in 1474 by the shrewd goblin Gringott, Gringotts rose from the ashes of economic chaos, offering vaults that burrow miles underground, protected by spells that multiply treasures into fiery infernos at the touch of thieves, troll sentinels with clubs like battering rams, and in the deepest chambers, dragons whose roars shake the earth. Picture the high-security vaults, accessible only by rickety carts hurtling through torchlit tunnels, veined with crystal deposits that glow like trapped stars. Blood verifies identity at the doors, your very essence the key, or a goblin's drop of it under imperious to force compliance. Breaches? Legendary rarities that become tavern tales. In the 1890s, during the era of Hogwarts legacy, the rebel goblin Ranrock and his lieutenant Belgruff stormed a vault in pursuit of ancient magic, slaying a banker in the fray, only to be repelled by the ethereal, pensive guardian, while Gringotts itself stood against the uprising. Fast forward to 1998, and Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger pulled off the impossible: Polyjuice to impersonate staff, Imperius on a goblin, and then a desperate flight on the back of a chained Ukrainian iron-bellied dragon, as the Lestrange vault's treasures erupted in flames behind them, all to claim Helga Hufflepuff's cup. These heists only heighten the fortress's aura, don't they? Gringotts endures its operations humming with the exchange of muggle pounds for clinking galleons, sickles, and knoots, while goblins tally every knut with unerring accuracy. But control has shifted like sand through fingers. By the 1500s, the Ministry of Magic wrested it from goblin hands after roughly 4 centuries of their stewardship. Unease over goblin financial might echoing old bands on their wand rights. Curse breakers like Tertius still navigated its depths under wizard oversight. Then, in 1865, the ministry yielded it back, though their watchful eyes never fully withdrew. The Second Wizarding War twisted the knife. With Albus Dumbledore gone and Voldemort puppeteering the ministry, Death Eaters seized the reins, goblin security twisted to dark purposes until the Dark Lord's fall restored goblin rule. Even in calmer times, like the Calamity era beyond the 2010s, Gringotts extended unlimited credit to wizards and aided in snaring unforgivables like Gareth Greengrass. Through it all, goblin-wizard relations simmer with resentment. Goblins demand ironclad contracts, their loyalty to the letter of the deal unbreakable, while wizards hoard priceless relics in vaults that mock goblin poverty. It's this dynamic that the motto reinforces: Fortius quo fidelius, a psychological anchor convincing wizards that goblin greed aligns perfectly with their own security needs. Speculation swirls around those ministry takeovers in the 1500s and 1990s. Power grabs masked as protections, or fears of goblin threats wielding economic leverage. And Ranrock's hunt for ancient magic hints at vaults concealing forces beyond gold, forbidden fortunes that could rewrite the world. The marble fortress guards more than mere coin. It's a vault of betrayals and unbreakable pacts where every shadow hides a power struggle. But to unravel why Gringotts became the wizarding world's unassailable hoard in the first place, we must descend into the catastrophe that birthed it. The soap blizzard and economic ruin, a collapse so total it forced wizards to bet everything on goblin fidelity. That gleaming marble fortress on Diagon Alley's north side, with its motto, Fortius quo fidelius, whispering promises of unyielding loyalty, wasn't built in a vacuum. It rose from the rubble of a wizarding world teetering on the brink, where gold flowed like potion from a cauldron one moment and vanished like smoke the next. Step back to the 14th century, when the wizarding economy swelled into something unrecognizable, a glittering bubble fueled by unchecked ambition and spells that promised endless wealth. Wizards and witches across Europe chased fortunes in the most improbable ventures. Mandrake root futures skyrocketed as demand for restorative potions surged amid endless skirmishes with dark creatures. Phoenix feathers, rarer than an honest politician, traded hands for sums that could buy a small castle, in enchanted artifacts multiplied under lax duplication charms, flooding hidden markets from the misty highlands of Scotland to the shadowed alleys of Paris. Galleons poured into speculative schemes, levitating orchards that harvested golden apples overnight, self-brewing ale that turned lead into lager, even memory charms peddled to forgetful nobles who wanted to relive their youth without the hangover. Banks, there were none, just loose networks of wizard lenders, goblin moneylenders operating from dingy vaults, and muggle coin exchanges shrouded in secrecy to avoid statutes of secrecy breaches. The air hummed with euphoria. Families who once scraped by on potion dregs now dined on phoenix roast and flagon after flagon of elf-made wine. He had Diagon Alley precursors, those ramshackle stalls that would one day evolve into its bustling heart, overflowed with hawkers shouting about the next big thing, a charm to multiply house elves' labour, or a crystal ball that predicted stock surges in unicorn horn derivatives. Confidence bred recklessness. Wizards borrowed against phantom wealth, signing blood oaths for loans they swore they'd repay when their goblin feather mines struck it rich. The bubble inflated, vast and iridescent, reflecting every wizard's wildest dreams in its shimmering surface. But bubbles burst, and this one shattered with a force that echoed through generations. Enter the soap blizzard of 1378, a cataclysm born from hubris in the alchemical labs of southern France. A brilliant but reckless potioneer, he's seeking the ultimate cleansing elixir for post-battle grime, brewed a batch of enchanted soap infused with multiplication charms and wind-summoning runes. One gusty experiment later, and the stuff erupted skyward. Bubbles the size of dragon eggs billowed out, carried on enchanted gales that swept across the wizarding continent. Picture it, skies darkening not with storm clouds, but with a frothy white maelstrom. Soap suds cascaded like snow, but alive, self-replicating, corrosive to gold and galleon alike. They infiltrated homes, shops, even the deepest cellars. Vaults of hoarded wealth dissolved in fizzy foam. Parchment contracts turned to pulp. Potion ingredients foamed into useless froth. Wizards woke to find their life savings bubbling away, galleons melting into soapy sludge that slipped through fingers like water. Markets ground to a halt as traders slipped on icy slicks of enchanted lather, their wares ruined. The economic bubble, already strained by over-leveraged gambles, popped in an instant. Fortunes evaporated overnight. Noble houses declared bankruptcy, their crests scrubbed clean by the relentless foam. Goblin lenders, caught holding worthless IOUs, sealed their caverns and vanished into the earth. The fallout lingered for decades. Wizarding Europe plunged into ruin. Barter became king, potions for bread, spells for shelter. Dark wizards preyed on the desperate, peddling counterfeit charms amid the chaos. Families fled to remote hamlets, their once grand libraries mouldering under soap-scarred roofs. The soap blizzard didn't just destroy wealth, it eroded trust. No one lent to anyone anymore. Gold, that slippery survivor, became a ghost story whispered around hearths. In this vacuum of faith and finance, where every handshake felt like a curse, the wizarding world hungered for stability, a secure hand to guard what little remained. That's precisely how the soap blizzard of 1378 created a vacuum for a new financial superpower. With traditional wizarding lenders discredited and goblin independence scattered, the stage cleared for an entity that could promise ironclad security. No more frothy illusions. Wizards craved vaults that laughed at blizzards, ledgers etched in unbreakable ink. The catastrophe exposed the fragility of their decentralized dealings, birthing a demand for centralized, goblin-run fortification. Beings renowned for their contractual zeal, even if wizards sneered at their hooked noses and gleaming teeth. Greed? Perhaps. But goblins honored pacts like spells bind to wands. In the ashes of economic Armageddon, this created an opening no one saw coming. From this frothy abyss emerged Gringott the Goblin, a visionary whose name would etch itself into legend. Picture him amid the chaos, a squat figure with eyes like polished nuts, navigating the soapy wreckage of a ruined exchange in the Goblin warrens beneath the Alps. While others licked their wounds, Gringott saw opportunity. He'd apprenticed under elder Goblin smiths, forging vaults that mocked duplication spells and blood wards that repelled thieves like oil on water. The blizzard had stripped wizards bare, but it honed his insight. They needed more than gold, they needed faith reborn. Gringott didn't charge in with grand speeches. He started small, offering secure storage in his subterranean forges for a modest fee, backed by goblin oaths unbreakable as dragon scale. Word spread through survivor networks, your heirlooms safe from foam, flood, or folly. He innovated wildly, carts powered by perpetual motion charms to whisk treasures deep underground, multiplying decoys to baffle intruders, even troll sentinels glamoured as statues. Wizards, burned by their own kind, trickled in, a widow with her late husband's phoenix egg, a cursebreaker clutching ancient runes. Gringott treated each vaulter like a personal fortress, his ledgers meticulous, his fees fair but firm. Chaos fueled his rise. As wizarding enclaves rebuilt, Gringott positioned his operation as the antidote to ruin. He navigated the tensions masterfully. Goblins chafed under wizard discrimination, yet he leveraged their reputation for fidelity. No soap blizzard could touch his depths. His charms neutralized such volatile magics. By the late 14th century, whispers of Gringott's guarantee echoed from Britain to Bulgaria. He wasn't just banking, he was rebuilding an empire on the bones of collapse, turning goblin cunning into wizarding salvation. Yet shadows lingered in his vision. Gringott foresaw the power imbalances. Wizards hoarding goblin-crafted wonders while denying them wands. His vaults would store not just gold, but secrets, forbidden artifacts, blood debts, the very keys to wizarding dominance. In a time when society clawed from frothy despair, he emerged not as opportunist, but architect of a new order. And that order crystallized nearly a century later, in a moment that reshaped the wizarding world forever. In our next chapter, 1474, the foundation of an empire, we'll uncover how Gringott seized that vacuum, planting the seeds of the marble behemoth that still guards Diagon Alley's treasures, and what forbidden pacts made it possible. You won't want to miss how one goblin's gamble birthed an unbreakable dynasty. As the ashes of the 14th century's economic catastrophe settled, wizards across Britain found themselves scavenging for scraps of stability. Their galleons scattered, and their trust in one another shattered by that infamous soap blizzard. You could almost hear the collective sigh of relief echoing through hidden manors and bustling wizarding markets as the 15th century dawned. A time of fragile recovery where old wounds began to heal and new ambitions took root. Or it was right in the heart of this tentative rebirth in 1474 that the strategic founding of Gringotts unfolded, not as a mere bank, but as a calculated masterstroke by a goblin visionary named Gringott, who saw the wizarding world's desperation not as chaos but as an opportunity to forge an empire from the ruins. Gringott wasn't born into obscurity. He emerged from the shadowed forges of goblin clans, those underground realms where firelight danced on blades sharper than dragon scales. Goblins had long been the unrivaled artisans of the wizarding world, their hands crafting wands that wizards later banned them from wielding, turning instead to weapons of exquisite lethality, swords that sang through armour, daggers that poisoned with a whisper, armour that turned aside curses like rain on oiled leather. But Gringott, with eyes like polished obsidian, recognised the pivot point. Why spill more blood in endless skirmishes when the wizard's true fear was losing their gold? He rallied his kin, redirecting that legendary craftsmanship from the clamour of battlefields to the silent sanctity of impenetrable vault design. Imagine the glow of goblin hammers reshaping molten metal, not into spearheads, but into vault doors etched with runes that warped space itself, locks that demanded blood oaths before yielding, and chambers deep underground where time seemed to stretch and contract at their whim. Those vaults weren't just strong boxes, they were fortresses woven from goblin ingenuity. The metal they forged gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, infused with enchantments that multiplied treasures within. Galleons breeding like rabbits in the dark, jewels pulsing with stolen magic, Gringotts designers layered protections that no Avada Kedavra could breach, anti-apparition wards humming like distant thunder, guardian creatures stirring in the depths, and spells that turned intruders' own fears against them. Wizards, still reeling from the bubble's burst, flocked to this new bastion on the north side of what would become Diagon Alley, their arms laden with heirlooms and hoards. Gringott's marble edifice rose like a sentinel, its columns veined with silver from goblin mines, the air inside thick with the scent of polished stone and fresh minted nuts, and carved above the entrance those words that would define it all: Fortius quo fidelius, strength through loyalty, a motto that promised not just security, but an unbreakable pact. What sealed this foundation wasn't brute force, but the sharp edge of goblin negotiation. Gringott didn't storm into wizarding society, he drafted the initial contracts that guaranteed goblin autonomy within wizarding borders, parchments so ironclad they might as well have been forged from the same vaults they protected. These agreements, inked in goblin blood, under the flicker of candlelight in smoke-filled chambers, stipulated precise terms. Goblins would manage the bank's operations exclusively, free from ministry meddling, in exchange for safeguarding wizard wealth with their renowned fidelity to contracts. No wizard could dictate terms inside those walls. No raid could touch goblin sovereignty. Clause by clause, they carved out a neutral ground, goblins handling the exchanges of muggle pounds for wizarding coin, the high-stakes deposits of cursed artifacts, the labyrinthine cart rides plunging thousands of feet below London streets. Wizards grumbled about goblin greed, but they signed knowing full well that no human banker could match this precision. Breaches? Unthinkable. A goblin's word was the vault's true lock, and in those early days it held firm, turning Gringotts into a throbbing heart of wizarding commerce. Picture the scene in 1474. Gringott himself, stooped yet commanding, overseeing the first deposits as nervous wizards handed over family crests and potion vials worth kingdoms. The carts rattled down shafts slick with enchantment, sparks flying from enchanted tracks, depositing fortunes into vaults that whispered secrets to their goblin keepers. This wasn't charity, it was strategy. Goblins, discriminated against for centuries, now held the keys to wizarding prosperity. Their autonomy a shield against the ones that had once denied them power. Whispers spread through the alleys. Gringotts wasn't just a bank, it was an empire in embryo, its foundations laid in the recovery's fertile soil, promising riches protected by craft that outshone any spell. Yet even as the gold piled high, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Wizards trusted goblin loyalty for their vaults, but chafed at the autonomy those contracts enshrined. An autonomy that let goblins dictate fees with surgical exactness, exchange rates that favoured their forgers, and security measures no outsider could fathom. Gringott's vision extended beyond mere storage. He built a system where every nut reinforced goblin independence, every vault a testament to redirected craftsmanship that turned weapons of war into guardians of wealth. By the end of the 15th century, Gringott stood unchallenged, its marble facade a beacon amid Diagon Alley's bustle, drawing merchants from Hogsmeade to the Highlands. This foundation wasn't flawless. Shadows of future conflicts loomed, like the ministry's eventual grasp in the 1500s, but in 1474, it was pure triumph. Gringott had pivoted his people's genius from destruction to preservation, securing not just gold, but a legacy of goblin resilience. As we descend deeper into Gringotts' saga, you'll want to stay tuned for Chapter 4, Goblin Philosophy of Ownership, where we unravel the radical beliefs that turned mere vaults into battlegrounds of the soul. Those goblin-forged vaults, born from the ashes of wartime blades, weren't just containers for gold. They were vessels etched with an unyielding creed. Goblins never truly relinquish what their hands have shaped. To them, the act of creation binds the object eternally to its maker, no matter who clutches the deed. This belief runs deeper than any cart track plunging into Gringotts' depths. Picture a goblin smith in the flickering glow of his underground forge, hammering runes into a chalice or a crown, his eyes gleaming with the certainty that his spark endures in every curve of metal. Wizards deposit these treasures, heirlooms passed down through bloodlines, convinced their galleons, and family vaults seal ownership forever. But goblins whisper among themselves in their sharp, guttural tongue that blood means nothing. Craftsmanship does. The maker's mark lingers like a curse, invisible yet omnipresent, waiting for the right moment to assert itself. Consider the swords they once forged for wizard lords during forgotten skirmishes, blades that cleaved through dark creatures with unnatural precision. A wizard might sheath such a weapon in his vault, boasting of conquests won, yet to the goblin who tempered its edge, it remains his, on loan perhaps, but never surrendered. They've been heard muttering in the marble halls, voices like grinding stone, that every goblin-made artifact in those vaults is merely entrusted, not transferred. Wizards laugh it off as sour grapes from a race, barred from wielding wands. But the rift festers. It's the core of their mutual disdain. Wizards hoard what they didn't birth, while goblins see over creation stolen in all but name. This fundamental cultural rift, where goblins believe the maker remains the true owner, poisons every handshake across the teller's counter. Wizards strut into Gringotts with puffed chests, keys jangling, oblivious to the eyes tracking their every step. Goblins bow low, their hooked noses nearly brushing the floor. But inside, resentment brews like potion in a cauldron, left too long on the fire. Why serve those who claim your life's work? Why guard treasures you view as pilfered? The answer lies in their ironclad nature, a trait wizards exploit even as they fear it. Generations of wizarding families build fortunes on goblin ingenuity. Vaults lined with goblets that never tarnish, rings that whisper secrets, relics humming with latent magic. Purebloods like the Malfoys or Blacks stuff their high-security chambers with such items, passing them to heirs amid tearful wills and ministry-stamped parchments. But here's the shadow creeping beneath those ceremonies. What if a goblin one day demands return? Not through theft, oh no, they're too proud for that, but through the quiet invocation of their ancient laws. An heir unlocks a vault to find a letter, sealed with Gringotts' crest, politely requesting repatriation of the goblin-forged heirloom inside. Refusal. The bank freezes the account, citing the perpetual claim of the creator. Suddenly, a family's legacy unravels, galleons inaccessible, until they negotiate or forfeit. That's how this philosophy creates a ticking time bomb for every wizarding inheritance. Picture the widow of a great lord. Her children gathered around a vault door in the 1990s, expecting floods of gold to fund their Hogwarts tuition. Instead, goblin clerks emerge, scrolls in hand, eyes cold as vault stone. The sword your ancestor commissioned, they intone, bears our mark. It returns to the forge. Chaos erupts, lawsuits in the Wizengamot, headlines in the Daily Prophet screaming of goblin greed. Yet it's no whim, it's doctrine, sown centuries ago when Gringotts rose from economic rubble. Every will penned by wizarding solicitors becomes a fuse, lit by the mere presence of goblin craft in those depths. Heirlooms turn to liabilities, fortunes to battlegrounds, all because ownership to a goblin isn't bought, it's forged. Even the infamous break-ins underscore this tension. When Harry Potter and his friends breached the Lestrange vault in 1998, tumbling through multiplying treasures on that rampaging Ukrainian iron belly, they weren't just dodging flames, they were navigating a goblin that deemed much of the hoard illegitimate anyway. Bellatrix's glittering piles included goblin-wrought diadems and cups, items the bank protected not out of love for wizards, but obligation. Ranrock's rebellion in the 1890s, storming vaults for ancient magic, echoed the same cry, "Reclaim what's ours by right of making." Amid this simmering feud, one slender thread holds the bank together: the Goblin commitment to contractual fidelity. They despise wizards, view them as thieving upstarts who ban Goblin wands and mock their stature. Yet once a contract is signed, it's sacrosanct. That motto carved above the doors, Fortius quo fidelius, strength through loyalty, isn't empty pomp. Goblins honour every clause, every drop of blood verifying identity, every key turned in a lock. Wizards deposit gold, and it stays put, guarded fiercer than dragon fire. They exchange muggle pounds for sickles, and the rate holds true. This loophole, this unbreachable vow to the parchment's word, keeps Gringotts functioning despite the hatred bubbling just beneath. Wizards trust it because they've seen the alternative. Goblin rebellions where forges reclaim entire armories overnight. So they play the game, storing their goblin-made treasures under goblin noses, betting on fidelity to outlast philosophy. But fidelity has limits, stretched thin by wizard arrogance. Whispers in goblin taverns speak of ledgers noting every maker's mark, vaults mapped with claims waiting to surface. A single dispute, a poorly worded inheritance clause, and the time bomb detonates. Families ruined, alliances shattered, all over the ghost of a hammer's strike. This delicate standoff couldn't endure unchallenged. In Chapter 5, the 1500s, the first great usurpation, discover how wizards finally moved to seize the reins, plunging Gringotts into its darkest power struggle yet. What drove them to betray their goblin bankers after mere decades of uneasy peace? That goblin conviction that the Maker forever holds the true claim to their creations. Simmered like a potion left too long on the fire, poisoning every transaction between wizards and their goblin bankers. By the early 1500s, barely a generation after Gringotts had risen from the ashes of economic ruin, those tensions boiled over into something far more sinister. The Ministry of Magic's sudden seizure of Gringotts' control. Picture the marble halls of the bank, echoing with the sharp clink of galleons and the low mutterings of goblin clerks, their sharp features lit by the flicker of enchanted lanterns. Wizards had flocked there for decades, entrusting fortunes born from the fragile recovery of the 15th century. Gringotts wasn't just a vault, it was the heartbeat of wizarding wealth. Its vaults burrowing deeper than dragon roots into the earth, guarded by spells only goblin hands could weave. Yet whispers in the ministry corridors grew louder. How could creatures without wands, banned from owning them since the goblin-wizard wars of old, command such power over gold that could topple governments? Investigating the Ministry of Magic's sudden seizure of Gringotts' control reveals a calculated strike, shrouded in official decrees that spoke of stability and wizarding oversight. It happened swiftly, in the shadow of the 1520s, when ministry envoys marched into the bank's grand atrium under the banner of Fortius quo fidelius. Strength through loyalty, the very motto etched above the doors. They didn't storm in with wands blazing. No, this was bureaucratic conquest. Decrees were issued overnight, citing vague threats to the wizarding economy, and goblin directors found themselves sidelined, their ledgers handed to wizard overseers. The goblins, bound by their ironclad contracts, could only watch as their autonomous empire fractured. Vault keys changed hands, cart tracks to the depths were rerouted under wizard supervision, and the air grew thick with unspoken resentment. The faint, acrid scent of goblin-forged ink mingling with the sterile parchment of ministry missives. But peel back those decrees, and you uncover the hidden motives behind the wizarding government's fear of goblin wealth. It wasn't mere greed, it was terror, pure and primal, of what that wealth represented. Goblins had turned their unparalleled craftsmanship from wands and weapons to something deadlier: financial dominion. In an era when wizard families still nursed grudges from the soap blizzard's fallout, Gringotts' vaults swelled with hoards that could fund rebellions or buy Wizengamot seats. Imagine a goblin banker, fingers deft as a curse breaker's, tallying loans that chained pure-blood lords to goblin terms. The Ministry saw shadows of uprisings in every vault audit. Goblins, with their long memories and precise ledgers, holding the purse strings of a world wizard's claim to rule. This fear echoed ancient prejudices. Goblins as eternal outsiders, their loyalty to contracts a thin veil over simmering revolt. Seizing control wasn't protection. It was preemption, a desperate grasp to keep the gold flowing toward wizard hands before goblin avarice or ingenuity turned it against them. At the core of this upheaval lay a direct thread to the long-standing ban on goblin wand ownership, which profoundly shaped the bank's management structure in ways wizards never admitted. That ban, etched into law centuries earlier after bloody revolts, stripped goblins of magical self-defense, rendering them reliant on wits and steel. Yet in Gringotts, it became a lever for control. Wizards argued goblins couldn't be trusted with vaults, as they lacked wands. No spells to protect against theft, they claimed, conveniently ignoring goblin-engineered safeguards like blood-locked door and multiplying curses that warped intruders into oblivion. Under Ministry rule, the structure rigidified. Goblin tellers handled day-to-day tallies, their quills scratching endlessly under wizard auditors' gaze. But high vaults demanded wizard keys, wizard oaths. No longer could a goblin director delve into the deepest levels unchallenged. Patrols of Auror trained overseers prowled the tracks, wands at the ready, ensuring goblin hands touched only what wizards permitted. This reshuffling sent ripples through the wizarding world. Families like the ancient black lineage funneled even more gold into the bank, drawn by the illusion of security, while goblin whispers in the underbelly of Diagon Alley spoke of the great betrayal. The motto above the doors rang hollow now. Loyalty bent to wizard will, yet goblins endured, their contracts unyielding, waiting through the decades as Ministry fingers tightened around the vaults. For nearly 4 centuries, this uneasy truce held, with wizards skimming the cream while goblins toiled in the depths, their fear of true ownership festering like an unhealed curse. That structure, born of wand, bans and whispered fears, set the stage for the curse breakers, who would plumb those forbidden depths. And soon you'll meet Tertius, the wizard who danced on the edge of goblin tolerance in Chapter 6. Tertius and the curse breakers. What secrets did he unearth that even the Ministry dared not touch? As the Ministry of Magic tightened its grip on Gringotts in the 1500s, pushing goblins into the shadows of their own creation, a new breed of wizard stepped into the flickering torchlight of the vaults below. These were the curse breakers, men who danced with death daily to unravel the very spells that guarded wizarding fortunes. And at the heart of this shadowy guild stood Tertius, the early pioneer of Gringotts' most dangerous profession. Tertius wasn't born to wealth or wizarding aristocracy. He came from the rugged hills of northern England, where Muggle coal miners scratched at the earth, much like goblins delved for treasure. A prodigy at Hogwarts in the late 1400s, he mastered charms and transfigurations that others feared. His wand hand steady, even as professors warned of the perils in Goblin Forge depths. By his early 20s, whispers of Gringotts' expanding vaults reached him. Caverns carved 1,000 feet underground, laced with enchantments that could multiply gold into fiery avalanches or summon spectral guardians from the stone itself. The Ministry, fresh in its usurpation, needed someone to tame these protections, to ensure wizard clients could access their hoards without the bank collapsing under its own defences. He took the oath in a dimly lit chamber beneath Diagon Alley, the air thick with the metallic tang of goblin silver and the low rumble of cart tracks echoing from afar. Tertius's first descent was into Vault 17, a modest chamber holding a baron's heirloom sword, said to curse any unworthy hand that grasped it. The blade hummed with layered hexes, goblin runes etched into the hilt that twisted the wielder's mind, overlaid with wizarding Fidelius variants that hid the vault's true contents, even from its owner. Tertius spent 3 days there, his face gaunt under the wandlight, murmuring counter-charms while sweat beaded on his brow from proximity curses that burned like dragonfire. He emerged victorious, the sword reclaimed, but with scars that glowed faintly blue for the rest of his life. Word spread quickly among the elite. Tertius became the go-to for the impossible, disarming a vault that flooded with ink-black potion devouring flesh on contact, or neutralizing a guardian sphinx whose riddles masked lethal transfigurations. His toolkit was ingenious. A reinforced broom for swift evasion, vials of essence of dittany for curse burns, and a custom wand of goblin steel tipped with phoenix feather. Flexible enough to channel the wild magics of the deep vaults, he trained apprentices in hidden alcoves off the bank's marble halls, teaching them to listen for the subtle whir of multiplying charms or the chill draft, signalling a nesting breed of vault-dwelling imps. Yet every job etched deeper lines on his face. By his 40s, his hair had turned ghost white, and he walked with a limp from a shattered leg courtesy of a rampaging treasure golem. This was no ordinary wizarding trade. Gringotts requires specialized wizards to break their own security charms because the bank's defenses are a hybrid nightmare. Goblin craftsmanship impenetrable to goblin hands alone, intertwined with wizard-specific spells, layered by paranoid clients. Imagine a vault sealed by your great-grandfather's blood oath, reinforced with his personal, unplottable charm that warps space itself. Goblins, bound by their contracts, won't touch it. Their magic clashes with wizard intent, rebounding catastrophically. Only a curse breaker like Tertius, steeped in human arcana, can attune to those personal weaves, whispering the counter-incantations that only a fellow wizard's intuition can sense. It's why the bank pays hazard wages in galleons, heavier than standard mint. 20 times the weight, they say, to lure these specialists into the abyss. But loyalty came at a steep personal cost. Tertius lived during one of the tensest eras of goblin-wizard friction, when rebellion simmered just below the surface, sparked by old grudges over wand rights and artifact ownership. Wizards flooded Gringotts with their gold, yet sneered at goblin bankers as greedy upstarts. Here was Tertius, a human wizard, plunging into goblin-engineered tunnels on their behalf, enforcing wizard supremacy, even as ministry edicts stripped goblins of autonomy. Friends at the ministry toasted his successes over fire whiskey, but goblin cart drivers shot him sidelong glares, muttering about traitors who profited from stolen craftsmanship. Did he ever pause, wand mid-air, questioning if he was bridging the divide or widening the chasm? Rumours persist of late-night arguments in the bank's staff quarters, where Tertius defended his role to furious goblin overseers, insisting his work preserved the fragile peace. One apprentice journal, smuggled out after his death, hints at his torment. They call me pioneer, but I am pawn in their eternal game. Human greed cloaked as duty. Tertius' career peaked in 1523, tackling the infamous Vault 99, rumoured to hold a shard of Merlin's own staff, its curses so vicious they had claimed 3 predecessors. He vanished for a week, emerging delirious, the artifact secured but his mind fractured. He retired to a cottage in the Yorkshire moors, where portraits of snarling vault beasts haunted his walls, and he spent his final years penning treatises on charm harmonics that curse breakers still swear by today. His legacy endures in every rattling cart descent, every flicker of wand light against rune-etched stone, a testament to the razor edge between fortune and oblivion. Yet the true shadows of Gringotts lie even deeper, in vaults that whisper of powers beyond gold or curses. In the next chapter, Deep Vaults and Ancient Magic, we'll descend further than Tertius ever dared, uncovering artifacts that could rewrite wizarding history and the forbidden energies they've guarded for centuries. What secrets pulse in those abyssal chambers, waiting to be unleashed? Tertius spent his career navigating the labyrinthine depths of Gringotts, disarming curses that wizards themselves had woven into their vaults. But those were merely the upper levels, the ones accessible to curse breakers like him. Deeper still lie the true enigmas, the vaults that burrow so far into the earth They brush against forces older than wizardkind itself. These deep vaults form the bank's unyielding spine, a network of chambers carved through solid bedrock, descending in dizzying spirals that no cart ride can fully prepare you for. The air grows thick and warm the further you plunge, laced with the faint metallic tang of goblin-forged enchantments humming against the stone. High-security vaults demand more than keys. They crave blood, a drop that verifies your lineage before the doors grind open on hinges older than the Tudor dynasty. Yet whispers persist among the goblin cart drivers, tales passed in hushed tones during the rattling descents, of vaults that predate the bank entirely. Rumours swirl that some of these deepest repositories were hewn not by Gringott's axes in 1474, but by hands long turned to dust, ancient wizards, or perhaps even the goblin's own primordial kin, who sense the power pulsing from the earth's hidden veins. These primordial vaults, sealed with magics that warp time and space, supposedly held artifacts from a forgotten age, relics that could unravel the fabric of reality if disturbed. Imagine the goblin surveyors stumbling upon them during the initial excavations, their torches flickering against walls, etched with runes no living scholar could decipher, runes that glowed faintly when blood touched them, as if recognizing kin from millennia past. What makes Gringotts' site in Diagon Alley so singularly suited for such anchors? London's geology isn't mere coincidence. Beneath that gleaming marble facade lies a convergence of ley lines and fault lines, where the Earth's crust thins just enough to tap into mantle heat without fracturing. This natural forge of pressures and temperatures provided the perfect cradle for the most potent enchantments, ones that bind spells to the planet's very heartbeat. Goblins, ever the master metallurgists, exploited this, layering their charms with geothermal resonances that amplify a vault's defenses exponentially. A simple anti-theft jinx up top might multiply treasures into fiery avalanches down below, but anchor it to these geological sweet spots, and it becomes an inferno that devours intruders whole, fueled by the core's distant fury. This proximity to primal forces invites endless speculation about the oldest families, those ancient bloodlines like the Gaunts or the Blacks, whose vaults reputedly hug the Earth's core closer than any others. Why else would they pay the goblins exorbitant fees for the lowest levels, enduring cart rides that last hours through pitch-black tunnels alive with skittering claws and echoing drips? Some say these families didn't choose their vaults. The vaults chose them, drawn by blood ties to magics predating Hogwarts' founding. Picture the Peverells or their ilk, descendants of those who walked with death itself, storing heirlooms in chambers where the rock veins pulse with raw magic, untainted by centuries of wizardly dilution. Their proximity grants unparalleled stability for the most forbidden enchantments. Horcruxes, perhaps, or vessels of ancient power that Ranrock sought in the 1890s, convinced Gringotts' hoarded secrets to rival the gods. Ranrock's raid wasn't mere rebellion. It was a desperate grasp at that ancient magic rumoured to slumber in those pre-bank vaults. Magic that could shatter goblin chains forever. He and his followers breached the outer defences, leaving goblin blood on the marble floors, only to be repelled by guardians that seemed summoned from the stone itself. The Pensieve Guardian, a spectral enforcer tied to the site's deepest anchors, materialized amid the chaos, its form shimmering with the same ethereal glow as those primordial runes. Even in the 1998s, when Harry Potter's trio dove into the Lestrange vault, they glimpsed the edges of this abyss, the multiplying gold turning to scorching blades, the Ukrainian iron-belly dragon chained as a final sentinel, its roars vibrating through layers of enchanted rock that amplified every tremor from below. These depths aren't just storage, they're a vaulted underworld where goblin craftsmanship meets geological sorcery, creating barriers that have withstood rebellions, heists, and wars. The heat rising from the core seeps into the metal doors, making them glow faintly red, a warning to any who dare approach without invitation. Wizards deposit their greed down there. Galleons stacked like dragon hoards. Heirloom wands pulsing with residual spells. Artifacts that whisper curses in forgotten tongues. But goblins know the truth. True power lies not in the gold, but in the anchors that bind it all, drawing strength from the earth's molten heart. The oldest families thrive on this edge, their vaults veritable thrones amid the magma's murmur, where enchantments woven millennia ago still hold fast, defying entropy itself. Speculation runs wild in Diagon Alley's shadowed corners. Do these families commune with core spirits through their blood rites, gleaning prophecies from the seismic rumbles? Or is it simpler, a geological lottery where only the purest lineages could attune to such volatile power without the vaults consuming them? Yet for all its impregnability, Gringott's deepest secrets remain just out of reach, teasing curse breakers like Tertius with glimpses of the infinite. In the next chapter, 1865, the Great Handover will uncover how the Ministry finally yielded control back to the Goblins after 4 centuries of uneasy rule, and what explosive revelations the handover nearly unleashed from those very depths. Those deepest vaults, carved so perilously close to the Earth's molten core, weren't just geological marvels for anchoring the oldest family's enchantments. They became unwitting symbols of a simmering resentment that had been building for centuries above ground. By the mid-19th century, the goblins who dug those tunnels and forged those spells felt the weight of wizarding oversight like chains on their own crafted gold. Gringotts had thrived under goblin hands since its founding in 1474, a beacon of security born from their unmatched metallurgy and unyielding contracts. Yet since the 1500s, when the Ministry of Magic seized the reins in that shadowy first usurpation, the goblins had been reduced to mere employees in their own empire. They tallied the wizards' galleons, navigated the cart tracks to the vaults, and whispered their motto, Fortius quo fidelius, strength through loyalty. But the true profits flowed to ministry coffers, and every decision passed through wizardly approval. Imagine the quiet fury in those marble halls where goblin tellers polished counters they no longer fully owned, their sharp eyes darting to the human overseers, perched like vultures at high desks. This wasn't a sudden grudge. It was the 400-year struggle for financial independence, a slow grind etched into goblin lore through generations of denied promotions, vetoed expansions, and contracts twisted to favour wizard clients. Goblins, ever the craftsmen, poured their ingenuity into the bank's defences, those anti-theft charms that multiplied treasures into fiery avalanches, the blood-verified locks that no wand could fool. But they watched as ministry wizards like Tertius, the Cursebreaker, reaped the glory and the fees for merely authorising their own work. Whispers spread in the underbelly of Diagon Alley. Why should the makers bow to the users? Why store wizarding fortunes while goblin artisans starved for autonomy? Tensions boiled over in the 1840s and 50s as the wizarding world grappled with its own upheavals. The aftermath of Muggle industrial revolution seeping through the Statute of Secrecy, inflating galleon values and straining the bank's ledgers. Goblins petitioned quietly at first, through formal grievances etched on enchanted parchment that self-shredded if ignored. But the ministry, bloated with post-war bureaucracy from earlier conflicts, dismissed them as greedy stereotypes, the same old prejudices that had banned Goblin Wand rites centuries before. Strikes rippled through the vaults. Carts halted mid-descent. Roll guards picketed the lobby, their clubs thumping rhythmically against marble floors polished to a goblin gleam. Then came the riots that preceded the shift, erupting in 1863 like a vault curse unleashed. Picture the scene. Throngs of goblins spilling from their warrens beneath London, their silver tools glinting under gas lamps, chanting for reclamation. They marched on the ministry atrium, hurling protest leaflets that burst into illusory flames mid-air, scorching no one but singeing wizard egos. Diagon Alley choked with the clamour. goblin banners woven from spider silk fluttering defiantly, clashing with Auror squads firing stunning spells into the fray. Vault access ground to a halt. Wealthy purebloods pounded on Gringotts' bronze doors, their heirlooms trapped below, while the Daily Prophet screamed headlines of goblin insurrection. One particularly brutal clash saw a ministry official's carriage overturned, its occupant, a smug vault auditor, dragged through the streets before being obliviated and released. The air reeked of scorched leather and righteous anger, the marble halls echoing with demands that had festered since Gringott himself laid the first stone. The political climate that forced the ministry to relinquish control back to the goblins was a perfect storm of that chaos. Wizards, for all their arrogance, relied utterly on goblin precision. No human could replicate those labyrinthine security webs, or the neutral enforcement of contracts that kept even the darkest artifacts secure. Public outrage swelled as riots disrupted trade. Pureblood families, their vaults frozen, pressured their ministry contacts. International goblin alliances from Nurmengard vaults and beyond threatened boycotts, hinting at a wizarding economic collapse without Gringott's steady hand. Even some ministry insiders, haunted by memories of past rebellions like Ranrock's in the 1890s, feared a full uprising that could expose the bank's deepest secrets, those ancient magics humming near the core, perhaps even fueling the riots with smuggled power. By 1865, the great handover was inevitable. In a dimly lit chamber beneath the ministry, amid stacks of crumbling ledgers, officials signed the accords under duress. Goblins reclaimed the teller's stools, the cart reins, the vault keys. Full operational sovereignty returned after 4 centuries of subjugation. Crowds roared outside Gringotts as goblin banners rose anew, the bronze door swinging wide to cheers that rattled the chandeliers. Gringotts' successors stood tall, their hooked noses high, toasting with fire whiskey, smuggled from deeper cellars. Yet victory came laced with compromise. The lingering oversight clauses that kept the ministry's eye inside the marble halls ensured wizards wouldn't fully let go. Subtle provisions lingered in the fine print. Annual audits disguised as consultations, veto rights on high-security vaults for national interest, and goblin oaths binding them to report suspicious wizard activities, like Horcrux deposits or forbidden artifacts. These threads, woven invisibly into the handover parchments, allowed ministry spies to pose as clients, their wands cloaked, eyes ever watchful from the shadows of teller counters. Goblins chafed but complied, their loyalty to contracts unbroken even as it galled them. This handover reshaped Gringotts into a fragile truce, a fortress where goblin pride clashed eternally with wizard suspicion. The riot's echoes faded, but the clauses ensured the ministry's gaze never truly left, peering into vaults that held not just gold, but the wizarding world's greediest secrets. And as we'll uncover in Chapter 9, the anatomy of a vault, what lurks in those individual strongrooms might make even the boldest goblin pause. What layered defences and hidden mechanisms turn a simple deposit into a gamble with your soul. With goblins finally wresting back full control of Gringotts in 1865, after those brutal riots had forced the ministry's hand and ended 400 years of uneasy wizard oversight, they wasted no time reinforcing what had always been their crowning achievement: the vaults. These weren't just repositories for gold and heirlooms, buried in the earth's fiery underbelly. They were living fortresses, each one a symphony of goblin cunning, designed to turn any intruder's greed into their own undoing. Picture the descent, if you've ever ridden those rickety minecarts, though you probably haven't, unless you're a wizard with a vault key clutched in your fist. The tracks plunge deeper than most mines dare, twisting through caverns where the air grows thick and hot, laced with the metallic tang of goblin-forged rails. Vaults line these depths in tiers, from the modest ones holding a few galleons for everyday folk, to the abyssal chambers of ancient families, sunk so low they brush the wizarding world's molten core. But access, That's where the true anatomy reveals itself. Layer by unyielding layer. First come the outer wards, invisible veils of enchantment that detect intent before a footfall echoes. Step wrong, and the stone floor might swallow you whole, or worse, summon the trolls. Hulking brutes stationed at key junctions, their clubs enchanted to shatter bone with a single swing, yet even trolls pale against the inner sanctums. Low security vaults yield to a simple brass key, goblin crafted with runes that bind to the owner's magical signature. Lose it. Good luck. Duplicates shatter on contact with the door. But for the high security depths, where the real fortunes slumber, think cursed diadems or soul-splintered artifacts, no key suffices. There, only blood will do. Blood identity verification stands alone as the only truly unhackable security measure in the wizarding world. And here's why it cuts through every ruse. Your blood isn't just fluid. It's a vessel for your core magic, an indelible imprint woven from your essence at birth. Spill a drop on the vault door, precise, no more than a pinprick, and it awakens the goblin wards. They taste it, not for type or colour, but for the unique resonance pulsing within, a signature as individual as your Patronus. Pollen, juice potion, it fools the face, the voice, even the gate, but not this. Imperious curse, it bends the mind, yet leaves the blood untouched. Even Vela hair or Amortentia can't mimic that primal echo. Forged documents crumble, illusions flicker out, and clever thieves, like our old friend Tertius, knew better than to try. One wizard once boasted of alchemical blood substitutes. The vault drank it down and spat flames hot enough to melt his wand. Goblins learnt this craft over centuries, perfecting it until no mimicry endures. It's why even Voldemort's forces, in their 1998 desperation, couldn't crack the Lestrange vault without a reluctant insider's vein. But suppose you do gain entry, legitimate or not. That's when the vault's heart quickens, unleashing thief's downfall in a shimmering cascade. Imagine it. As you cross the threshold, a sudden downpour erupts from nowhere. Not rain, but a deluge of crystalline potion, engineered by goblins to scour away deception. Thief's downfall possesses purifying properties that strip enchantments like acid, eats rust. Polyjuice dissolves in seconds. Your borrowed visage melting back to your true one amid the torrent. Disguise spells unravel, glamours evaporate, and even lingering Confucius charms fade under its relentless wash. It's odorless, tasteless, triggered solely by unauthorized presence, though account holders get a polite warning sprinkle, harmless as morning dew. In the Lestrange heist, it nearly doomed Harry, Ron and Hermione mid-raid, their Bogart faces reverting just as alarms wailed. Goblins brew it from rare abyssal springs, mixed with phoenix tears for that unerring purity, ensuring no thief slips through unaltered. And if the flood doesn't deter you, the treasures themselves fight back. Deep in the vault, mounds of gold gleam under low goblin lights, but touch them unbidden, and Geminio awakens. The multiplying charm, a goblin favourite for its vicious elegance. Cast on an object, Geminio doesn't duplicate value. It spawns inferi of worthlessness. Grab a galleon, and it splits into 2, then 4, a cascade of replicas flooding the chamber. Each copy lighter, colder, worthless bronze, transmuted in an instant, piling up until you're buried alive under a glittering avalanche. During that 1998 breach, the trio watched heirlooms erupt into thousands, the vault transforming from trove to tomb. Goblins layer it recursively, so the fakes multiply the fakes, an exponential nightmare that clogs every exit. Layered atop Geminio comes Flagrante, the burning heat charm, igniting with a thief's grasp. It's no mere scorch. Flagrante curses the flesh with infernal fire, drawn from the earth's own magma veins far below. Touch a gem and agony blooms, skin blisters, burns spread like fiend fire but contained searing deeper with every panicked flail. The pain lingers days, marking the hand with goblin runes that glow under moonlight, a perpetual brand for would-be robbers. Witnesses from Ranrock's 1890s incursion described goblins laughing as rebels clawed at molten vaults, their screams echoing up the shafts. These charms entwine seamlessly, multiply under flagrant, and you're grasping infernos that clone themselves, turning a simple grab into self-immolation amid a blazing horde. Yet for all this lethality, vaults honour their masters. Legitimate blood opens the door clean, charms dormant, treasures cool and true. Goblins swear by their contracts. Breach one, and the anatomy shifts against you without mercy. It's this precision that kept Gringotts breach-free for centuries. Save those legendary exceptions, fueled by war's desperation or ancient rebellions. Deeper still, past these charmed labyrinths, rumours persist of a guardian, so colossal it defies the vault's own ferocity. In our next chapter, The Dragon in the Basement, we'll descend to the absolute nadir, where flames hotter than flagrante lick the stone, and a beast forged in nightmare enforces the final taboo. What horrors await those who dare probe Gringotts' deepest secret? Stay with me and find out. Those multiplying treasures and blistering flagrant curses guard the vaults against all but the most desperate intruders. But deep still, where the earth's own heat presses in like a living thing, Gringotts deploys its most primal sentinel, a Ukrainian iron-belly dragon, chained in the abyssal basement levels, its breath a furnace that could melt galleons to slag. This colossal beast, with scales like blackened iron and eyes glowing like embers in a forge, isn't some wild myth from dragonologists' tales. It's real, tethered by goblin-forged enchantments in the lowest caverns beneath Diagon Alley, where the air thickens with sulphur and the rumble of distant underground rivers echoes off vaulted stone. Witnesses from that infamous 1998 break-in, Harry Potter and his friends, rode its back to freedom, claws scraping marble as it burst from the bank's foundations into the London sky. But how did such a nightmare end up there? A living weapon in a goblin vault. The secret history of dragon handling within the lower levels of London stretches back centuries, woven into the city's forgotten underbelly, long before Gringotts claimed it. Muggles above walk Charing Cross Road, oblivious to the goblin tunnels snaking below, but wizards whisper of older networks. Roman-era dragon pits repurposed by medieval alchemists, smuggling routes from the 1700s when dragon eggs fetched fortunes on the black market. Gringotts didn't invent this, they perfected it. By the 1500s, as the ministry seized control, goblin handlers were already corralling beasts from Eastern European wilds, using the bank's depths as a natural prison. The soil there, laced with ley lines and volcanic vents, dampens dragonfire just enough to contain them, turning London's basement into a labyrinth of scales and smoke. Picture the descent. Those rickety carts hurtle past vault doors, plummeting into blackness where torchlight fails and the air turns acrid. Goblin cart drivers, their eyes sharp as pickaxes, know the signs. The low growl vibrating through rock, the sudden heat bloom that wilts your robes. It's no accident. Gringotts selects the site for this very reason, anchoring their fortress where ancient dragon lore meets modern greed. Acquiring these guardians begins far from the marble halls, in the jagged peaks of Ukraine where Ukrainian ironbellies roam free, the largest and fiercest of their kind, wings spanning 30 feet, capable of levelling a village with a single exhale. Goblin traders, cloaked in disillusionment charms, venture into those mist-shrouded mountains during hatching seasons, bartering with rogue dragonologists or poaching from nests under cover of night. Eggs are smuggled via portkeys disguised as ore crates, arriving in Gringotts sublevels, still warm from the mother's breath. But raw acquisition is just the start. The real craft lies in conditioning. Conditioning transforms a feral hatchling into a security system more reliable than any spell. It starts with isolation in warded pens, where goblin runes pulse on the walls, siphoning the dragon's fire into containment crystals. Handlers, elite goblins trained from birth as serpent sorcerer variants and fiendfire wards, feed them a regimen of charred acromantula meat laced with obedience potions, slowly imprinting loyalty to goblin scent and the bank's harmonic frequencies. Chains aren't mere iron. They're woven with basilisk venom threads and phoenix feather cores, enchanted to tighten with unauthorized magic, loose only for goblin commands. Over years, the dragon learns to distinguish vault echoes from intrusion spells, its roar triggering cascading defenses. Thief's Downfall floods, Geminio swarms, Flagranti Infernos. By adulthood, it's a conditioned colossus, patrolling a circuit of the deepest vaults, its presence alone scorching away doubt. Yet this raises profound questions about the ethics of using a Ukrainian ironbelly as a biological security system. Is it guardianship or cruelty? Chaining a creature of ancient skies to eternal darkness for wizard gold. Dragons in the wild form bonds, hunt under stars, migrate with herds. The ironbelly, solitary by nature, suffers in isolation, its wings atrophied from disuse, madness flickering in those ember eyes from potion-dulled instincts. Goblins argue it's mutual. The bank provides sustenance, protection from poachers, a purpose in their contractual worldview. Wizards, outsourcing their sins, turn a blind eye, valuing security over sentience. Remember, these beasts are classified XX by the Ministry, near uncontrollable, yet Gringotts wields one like a guard dog. Breaches like the Lestrange vault heist exposed the cracks. The dragon rampaged free, suggesting conditioning fails under chaos, leaving ethical scars amid the rubble. Deeper ethical shadows lurk in the history. During the Second Wizarding War, Death Eaters commandeered Gringotts, likely dosing the dragon with cruciatus derivatives, the Hutton aggression, turning it against its own keepers. Post-war audits, buried in ministry files, hint at goblin retaliation, poisoned feeds that left the beast lethargic for months. Who bears the moral weight? The goblins binding nature to coin, or wizards who profit from the cage? In a world where house elves beg for socks and centaurs are herded like cattle, Gringotts' dragon embodies wizarding hypocrisy, a living testament to power's cost. These basement depths hold more than one such horror. Rumours persist of auxiliary lairs, housing Norwegian ridgebacks, or even a Hungarian horntail, rotated for conditioning cycles. The air down there hums with restrained fury, scales scraping stone like whispers of rebellion. Goblins guard their methods jealously, but escaped flames have scorched Diagon Alley basements, forcing memory charms on muggle plumbers who dig too deep. As we surface from these fiery secrets, the wizarding world's reliance on such brutal ingenuity unravels further in the late 1800s, when goblin unrest boiled over into outright war. Next, in Chapter 11, the 1890s. The Ranrock Insurgency. Discover how a rebel leader stormed these very vaults, seeking powers that could shatter Gringotts forever. What ancient forces did he unleash, and why did the dragon's chains nearly break? Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. Those colossal Ukrainian iron-belly dragons might have prowled the deepest chasms beneath Gringotts, their scales etched with scars from centuries of conditioning. But in the 1890s, the real peril slithered up from the goblin ranks themselves, testing the bank's loyalty like never before. Ranrock, a goblin forged in the fires of ancient grudges, rose as the unlikely architect of what history whispers as the Ranrock Insurgency. Scarred by the endless cycle of goblin craftsmanship, fueling wizard opulence while his kind scraped for scraps, he rallied disaffected miners and forged masters from the underbelly of wizarding society. Gringotts, that gleaming bastion of marble and gold on Diagon Alley's north flank, became his singular fixation. Not for the galleons stacking in its vaults, but for Vault 12, a shadowed chamber said to cradle remnants of something far older than goblin gold greed. Traces of ancient magic, raw and unbound, pulsing like the Earth's hidden heartbeat. You can almost feel the tension coiling in those years, as Ranrock's whispers spread through goblin taverns, tucked away in Nocturne Alley's gloom. He preached of a power that wizards hoarded in secret, a force that could shatter the chains of ministry oversight and restore goblin supremacy. Vault 12 wasn't just a repository, it was a myth-made manifest. Its location charted deep below the bank's cart tracks, protected by charms that twisted time and space. Ranrock convinced himself, and hundreds of followers, that breaching it would unleash a cataclysm of empowerment. Ancient magic flowing free to rewrite the wizarding order. His obsession consumed him. Scouts mapped the tunnels by memory, evading the thief's downfall cascades that stripped illusions bare. They bribed low-level cart operators with promises of shares in the vault's untold riches. Ranrock himself, with his bandaged eye and forge-hammered staff, led night raids disguised as maintenance shifts, their picks echoing softly against the unyielding stone. But Gringotts goblins, bound by their sacred contracts and the motto Fortius Quo Fidelius, strength through loyalty, stood firm. They alerted no wizards at first, handling the threat internally, their crossbows glinting in the perpetual torchlight of the lower levels. The turning point came in a frenzy of violence that the ministry later buried under layers of obliviate spells and scorched parchments. During one audacious incursion, Ranrock and his lieutenant, the brute Belgruff, stormed Vault 12's antechamber. A loyal goblin banker, tasked with the blood verification rites, barred their path. His name, erased from all but the most clandestine records, was a quiet functionary who'd served Gringotts for decades, his ledger hand steady even as the rebels closed in. Ranrock struck first, his dagger flashing in the vault's eerie glow, spilling blood that mingled with the faint magical residue seeping from the seals. The murder was swift, brutal, a goblin turning on his own to chase forbidden power. The ministry, ever eager to paint goblins as volatile inferiors, scrubbed every trace from official annals, classifying it as an internal dispute to avoid igniting broader rebellions. Word of the killing rippled outward, but Ranrock pressed on, convinced the Vault's guardians were mere illusions. His forces tunneled parallel to the main shafts, dodging flagrante curses that set intruders ablaze, and Geminio spells that birthed hordes of decoy treasures. The insurgency swelled, goblin sympathizers sabotaging wizard deposits, withholding muggle currency exchanges, even tampering with the high-security blood keys. Wizards felt the tremors first in fluctuating gold values, then in delayed payouts that starved potion suppliers and broomstick forgers. What began as a goblin vendetta spiraled into economic Armageddon. Ranrock's pursuit of that ancient magic in Vault 12 didn't just threaten Gringotts. It nearly collapsed the global wizarding economy. Galleon reserves dipped as panic wizards hoarded at home. Muggle banks eyed wizarding exchanges suspiciously amid unexplained shortages, and international trade with places like the French National Bank ground to whispers. Bogues Baton's professors couldn't fund their crystal imports. Durmstrang's shipwrights idled without timber loans. The ripple hit even distant corners. Peruvian vipertooth ranchers defaulted on Gringotts loans, flooding black markets with unregulated beast parts. Riots flickered in Hogsmeade, where shopkeepers blamed goblin treachery for empty tills. The ministry teetered, issuing emergency fiendfire-warded decrees to stabilize the coinage, all while desperately containing Ranrock's growing army. Gringotts itself became a fortress under siege from within. Loyalists reinforced the vault doors with fresh enchantments, their hammers ringing like war drums. Ranrock's raids grew bolder, his obsession blinding him to the mounting cost in goblin lives. He dreamed of ancient magic as a river of power, one that would drown wizard dominance, but each a failure only deepened the chasm between rebels and the bank's steadfast core. Yet the insurgency's collapse hinged on a single, enigmatic confrontation deep in those vaults. An event so shrouded it demands its own reckoning. Tune in next for Chapter 12, the Pensieve Guardian incident, where we'll uncover the spectral force that finally repelled Ranrock, and the chilling secrets it guarded that even the goblins feared to name. Ranrock's rage didn't end with that goblin banker's blood on the marble floors. Emboldened by whispers of ancient magic, hidden deep within the vaults, he rallied his most trusted lieutenant, the brute Belgruff, for a brazen assault, straight into the heart of Gringotts itself. This was no subtle infiltration. It was a full-scale breach in the 1890s, a desperate lunge at Vault 12, the same one that had fueled his insurgency from the shadows. They stormed the lower levels, torches flickering against the damp stone walls, the air thick with the metallic tang of goblin-forged rails and the distant rumble of security carts. But what they encountered there would etch the name Pensieve Guardian into the bank's most guarded lore. A defense so enigmatic it turned their invasion into a rout. Picture the chaos unfolding in those subterranean passages. Ranrock and Belgruff, armoured in rebel-forged plate that gleamed like blackened silver, forced their way past the initial troll sentinels, massive brutes felled by coordinated goblin curses that echoed like thunderclaps off the vaulted ceilings. The air grew heavier, laced with the acrid bite of anti-intruder spells, igniting spontaneously, singeing fur and cloth as they descended. They had intel, perhaps leaked from a disgruntled teller, pointing to Vault 12's trove of primordial power. Artifacts pulsing with the raw essence of Wizarding Earth's magic, the kind that could shatter ministry chains forever. Yet as they breached the final antechamber, the Pensieve Guardian materialized, not as a beast or a construct, but as a swirling vortex of memory and malice, born from the vault's own enchanted core. This guardian wasn't your standard troll or dragon. Witnesses, those few goblins who survived the aftermath, described it as a spectral colossus, towering and translucent, its form woven from silvery threads of pensive essence, like liquid moonlight pulled from 1,000 stolen thoughts. It didn't charge or roar, it unraveled the intruder's minds first. Ranrock's followers froze mid-stride, eyes glazing over as fragmented visions assaulted them. Echoes of ancient betrayals, goblin uprisings crushed under wizard boots, the very grievances that drove their rebellion twisted into paralyzing doubt. Belgruff swung his massive axe, only for the blade to pass through ether, the Guardian retaliating by flooding his skull, with illusions of endless caverns collapsing, walls of gold crushing his bones. Ranrock himself barely escaped, scorched and staggering, his obsession with ancient magic now haunted by the Guardian's unblinking gaze. The breach failed spectacularly, leaving bodies strewn and alarms wailing through the depths. But the real question lingers. How did such a defense even exist? And why was it keyed to protect secrets the goblins themselves coveted? Delving deeper into the Guardian's nature reveals layers of Gringotts' arcane engineering, far beyond the thief's downfall or flagrante curses we've explored. Crafted in the bank's goblin forges centuries prior, it draws from pensive technology, those basins of thought storage, miniaturized and weaponized into a perpetual sentinel, fed by a nexus of vaulted memories. It doesn't just guard, it anticipates, pulling from the psychic residue of every depositor who's ever touched the gold within. Wizards like the oldest families, stashing heirlooms near the Earth's core, unwittingly contribute to its power, their fears, ambitions and hidden shames fueling its assaults. In the 1890s breach, it adapted in real time, manifesting Ranrock's deepest fury against him, turning his righteous anger into a labyrinth of self-doubt. No wonder the Ministry scrubbed the details. Admitting such a weapon existed could expose how Gringotts hoards not just treasure, but the collective subconscious of the wizarding elite. Yet here's the twist that cuts to the bank's fractured soul. Gringotts' leadership publicly condemned Ranrock's rebellion with fiery denunciations, aligning with Ministry forces to hunt him down, even as every goblin cart driver and vault keeper shared his burning grievances. Why the betrayal? Goblins had chafed under wizard discrimination for generations. Banned from wands, relegated to craftsmen and bankers, their superior metallurgy mocked as mere greed. Ranrock's call for uprising echoed the riots of 1865, the same that wrested control back from the Ministry after 400 years of usurpation. Leadership knew this intimately. High cartels whispered of solidarity in smoky back chambers, toasting to the day vaults would fund goblin liberation. but they opposed him officially for a colder reason. Ranrock's Vault 12 obsession threatened the fragile contracts that kept Gringott solvent. Breaching those depths risked unraveling the multiplying charms, the blood-verified seals, exposing artifacts like the ancient magic repositories that wizards paid fortunes to hide. Leadership saw Ranrock as a loose cauldron, passionate but reckless, dooming them all to ministry retaliation, dragons commandeered, and goblin rule erased once more. Better to sacrifice one rebel than lose the bank's ironclad fidelity. Their motto, Fortius Quo Fidelius, twisted into a shield for self-preservation. Beneath this schism, though, simmered a clandestine pact that rewrote the rebellion's hidden history, a secret alliance between Gringotts and Hogwarts itself. While Ranrock rampaged, select goblin elders funneled intelligence to the castle's professors. Maps of rebel camps etched on vault parchment, smuggled via owlpost, disguised as deposit ledgers. Hogwarts, under Headmaster Black's watchful eye, reciprocated with subtle wards that cloaked Gringott's upper halls from Ranrock's scouts, their ancient magic tutors lending charms to bolster the pensive guardian without a trace. This wasn't loyalty to wizards, it was pragmatic chess. The bank needed Hogwarts' prestige to vouch for their neutrality post-insurgency, ensuring goblin control endured beyond 1895. In return, the school gained access to vaulted lore, scrolls of Earthcore enchantments that amplified their own defenses against dark forces brewing. Whispers persist of joint rituals in the deepest vaults, goblins and professors chanting under torchlight, binding their fates against upstarts like Ranrock. This shadow accord preserved the status quo, goblins nursing their grudges in silence while wizards slumbered unaware. The pensive guardian's victory sealed Ranrock's fate, his forces splintering as the guardian's psychic scars lingered, turning allies into muttering wrecks. Gringotts emerged unscathed on the surface, but the incident scarred its underbelly, reinforced protocols, tighter blood oaths on tellers, and a lingering chill in the cart tunnels where memories still faintly swirl. Leadership's opposition, born of shared pain yet ruthless calculus, underscored the goblin paradox. Loyal to contracts above kin, guardians of wizard greed while plotting in the gloom, and that alliance with Hogwarts. It hinted at vaults hiding more than gold, pacts forged in Earth's fire, secrets that bind bank and school in eternal vigilance. Up next in Chapter 13, the cart rides. A controlled nightmare, we'll descend into the vertigo-inducing terror those rickety mine carts. Engineered not just for speed, but to break the will of any thief before they even reach the vaults. What dark enchantments make them plummet and twist like living nightmares? Even as Gringott's leadership publicly condemned Ranrock's rebellion, distancing themselves from his violent grievances, they knew the bank's deepest defences lay far beyond any surface breach, like his attempted vault raid. The pensive guardian was just a prelude, a shimmering veil over the real abyss. No intruder, goblin or wizard, could reach the lower vaults without submitting to the cart rides. That labyrinthine plunge engineered to break the will before the body even arrives. You feel it the moment you step into one of those rickety, open-air carts, perched on narrow tracks that snake through Gringott's underbelly, like the veins of some colossal beast. These aren't mere mine cars from a muggle folktale. They're the engineering marvel of the Gringotts track system, a goblin masterpiece forged over centuries in the bank's subterranean forges. Picture rails hewn from enchanted obsidian and reinforced with spells that defy gravity itself, twisting through cavern walls veined with glowing crystals and plummeting shafts that drop hundreds of feet in seconds. Goblins, with their innate affinity for metalwork and rune carving, layered the tracks with propulsion charms, subtle weaves of Levioso and Accelero derivatives. That launched the carts without visible engines, hurtling them along at speeds no broomstick could match in such confines. The tracks span miles, you see, branching into a web that only the goblin navigators truly map in their minds. High-security vaults demand paths that loop through flooded tunnels, past geothermal vents spewing scalding steam, and over chasms bridged by illusionary spans that flicker into void mid-ride. It's said the system's core innovation came in the early 1500s, right around the Ministry's takeover, when goblins embedded self-repairing runes to thwart sabotage. A single derailment spell rebounds on the caster, twisting their own magic back into knots. Riders have whispered of carts that adjust their gauge mid-journey, widening or narrowing to fit impossible crevices, all while the frame vibrates with a low, goblin-forged hum that resonates in your bones. But why do these carts move at a speed that bypasses most human sensory perception? It's no accident of goblin haste. It's deliberate psychological calculus. At 40 miles an hour or more, through hairpin turns and freefalls, your eyes blur into a smear of torchlight and shadow. Your inner ear floods with vertigo signals that overload the vestibular system. Human brains, wired for predictable motion like a thestral's trot or a flow network spin, simply can't process the onslaught. Visual cues vanish in the rush. Stalactites whip past too fast to track, preventing any mental mapping of the route. Your stomach lurches as G-forces pin you to the seat, heart rate spiking to drown out coherent thought. Nausea builds not from mere velocity, but from the deliberate dissonance. Sudden brakes that slam you forward, illusory walls that seem to close in, engineered to mimic the disorientation of a confundus charm without leaving a trace. Goblins understood this from their own rebellions. They'd ridden similar tracks in ancient mineshafts during the 1400s, when Gringott himself oversaw the first prototypes. Wizards with their fragile egos and reliance on wands fare worst. The speed strips away landmarks. No time to note the glowing rune cluster or the faint echo of dripping water that might signal a vault level. Memory fragments into terror-laced flashes. A howl of wind, the carts screech on curves, the goblin miner's impassive face as he grips the brake lever. By the time you stagger out at your vault, minutes or hours later, time dilates in the blur. Your clay in their hands, blood pounding, senses scrambled. No wizard has ever retraced the path alone. The ride imprints a subconscious dread, ensuring you return only under goblin escort. This is the psychological warfare of the journey to the lower vaults. A controlled nightmare that preys on the mind's frailties long before physical traps engage. Deeper levels amplify it. Carts plummet past anti-gravity pockets, where up becomes down. Your body floating weightless before slamming back, triggering primal panic akin to a Dementor's chill, but rooted in physics twisted by magic. Whispers persist of embedded enchantments, subsonic frequencies that induce paranoia, making shadows seem like pursuing auras, or scents of ozone that evoke lightning strikes. It's warfare without wands, turning the rider into their own saboteur. Doubt creeps in. Did that turn lead to Vault 12, or was it a decoy loop? Trust erodes, binding you tighter to goblin authority. Even Harry Potter, in his 1998 Heist, emerged from the Lestrange ride pale and vomiting, his brilliant mind fogged just enough to miss a multiplying charm's full trigger. Goblins refined this over generations, testing on unwitting wizards during the economic bubble's aftermath, when desperate depositors begged for access. Ranrock's insurgents learned it the hard way in the 1890s. Survivors babbled of endless spirals that matched no known track maps, their resolve shattered before the pensive guardian even stirred. The bank's motto, Fortius quo fidelius, echoes here. Strength through enforced loyalty, where the ride binds you as surely as any unbreakable vow. Vaults below the 500th level. Those demand multi-cart relays, each leg escalating the torment, speeds hitting 60 miles per hour, laced with vertigo potions vented as mist. Your body adapts poorly. Adrenaline crashes leave limbs trembling, vision spotting, priming you for blood verification's prick without resistance. Yet beneath the terror lies goblin genius, a testament to why wizards both fear and need them. The tracks pulse with life, rerouting dynamically via crystal relays that sense unauthorized intent, shunting suspicious carts to holding pits swarming with imps. During Voldemort's brief takeover in the 1990s, Death Eaters tampered with the system, only to find it self-purging, rails liquefying under dark spells, reforming unscathed. It's this fusion of mechanics and malice that guards not just gold, but secrets like ancient magics or Horcruxes, ensuring the journey humbles even the mightiest. As the cart grinds to a halt at last, vault door yawning like a maw, you're remade. Disoriented, utterly dependent. But Gringott's enigmas extend beyond these depths, into the subtle arts of wizarding finance, intertwined with the Muggle world. In our next chapter, Muggle Currency and the Hidden Exchange, we'll peel back how the bank launders Muggle pounds into galleons, the shadowy rates that fund Goblin rebellions, and the forbidden artifacts swapped in backroom deals that could topple economies. You won't believe the exchange fees hiding in plain sight. Those disorienting cart rides, hurtling through the labyrinthine tracks at speeds that blur the boundaries of human perception, don't just deliver you to vaults bursting with gold. They deposit you right back into a financial web that stretches far beyond the wizarding world. One where every galleon, sickle and knut traces its origins to the unsuspecting Muggle economy. Wizards have always needed a bridge between their hidden realm and the Muggle one, especially when it comes to cold, hard cash. You see, not every witch or wizard lives off pure blood inheritance or potion brewing side hustles. Many hold down Muggle jobs, disguised as accountants, teachers, or even ministry clerks moonlighting in the non-magical world, bringing back fistfuls of pounds, shillings, and pence to convert at Gringotts. The bank's towering marble counters in that vast atrium hum with this daily ritual. Goblin tellers with their hooked noses and ledger-sharp eyes scrutinizing every crumpled note under the flicker of enchanted lanterns. But here's where the true intrigue uncles. How Gringotts interacts with the non-magical financial world isn't some polite handover at the leaky cauldron. It's a shadowy pipeline, engineered by goblins who view Muggle money as just another raw material to be refined. Picture a weary wizard, fresh from a 9-to-5 in London, slipping a thick envelope of banknotes across the polished counter. The goblin doesn't simply count it and hand back coins. No, those pounds vanish into secure vaults below, funneled through processes that would make any Muggle banker blanch. The logistics of laundering Muggle money into gold, silver, and bronze unfold in Gringotts' hidden forges, deep beneath Diagon Alley, where the air thickens with the acrid tang of molten metal and alchemical fumes. First, the goblins assay the bills, testing for counterfeits with spells that detect ink anomalies or paper weaves invisible to Muggle eyes. Authentic currency gets melted down in cauldrons warded against detection, transmuted into pure ingots using goblin-forged alloys that mimic wizarding standards. Gold pounds become galleons, heavy and warm with 17 sickles worth of value each. Silver yields the sleek, easy sickle stacks, and bronze pennies cascade into endless nuts. It's not mere exchange, it's alchemy disguised as banking, with anti-tracing charms ensuring no Muggle serial numbers linger to betray the source. This isn't haphazard. Gringotts maintains vast reserves of wizarding coin, minted in subterranean presses that stamp the Triwizard crest with unerring precision. But to keep the supply flowing without depleting their hoards, goblins cycle Muggle funds back into the system through layered investments. Excess pounds get laundered via anonymous Muggle accounts, funneled into property deeds or bonds that quietly appreciate, then redeemed for more raw currency. Wizards pay a premium rate. Galleon for roughly £5, fluctuating with goblin set exchange whims. But the bank profits handsomely, turning Muggle paper into eternal wizarding wealth. Yet the real masterstroke lies with the secret goblin fixers who operate within the London Stock Exchange. These aren't your typical hook-nosed bankers in pinstripes. They're master illusionists, polyjuice masters blending seamlessly among the frenzied traders of that Muggle Colosseum on Threadneedle Street. Disguised as sharp-suited brokers or anonymous quants, they manipulate trades with subtle wand flicks, nudging share prices, shorting doomed companies, or inflating blue-chip stocks just enough to skim billions without raising alarms. Their lairs are hidden alcoves in the exchange's labyrinthine halls, warded with muffliato and disillusionment spells, where they pore over Bloomberg terminals, enchanted to whisper insider tips from Goblin scrying pools. These fixers aren't rogue operators. They're Gringotts' elite vanguard, sanctioned by the bank's high command since the 1500s. They acquire massive influxes of Muggle liquidity, trillions in hedged derivatives or offshore funds, then route it back through the laundering forges. Imagine a fixer, eyes gleaming under glamoured spectacles, executing a perfectly timed arbitrage on British Petroleum shares, netting pounds that will soon clink as galleons in a pure blood vault. It's their greed channeled into genius, ensuring Gringotts never starves for fresh metal, while wizards remain blissfully ignorant of the Muggle markets they indirectly plunder. This hidden exchange fuels the wizarding economy's underbelly too. Black market artifact dealers dump Muggle cash from international heists. Knowing Gringotts tellers ask no questions if the rate's right. Even the ministry funnels emergency funds this way during crises, converting seized Muggle assets into war chest gold. But tensions simmer. Goblins resent the wizards' reliance, hiking fees during rebellions, or withholding conversions to flex their power. Remember Ranrock's insurgency in the 1890s? Whispers suggest his fixers tried to sabotage the exchange, crashing Muggle markets to starve Gringotts' vaults and fund his uprising. The air in those forges grows hotter as ingots cool into coin stacks, each piece etched with spells that prevent counterfeiting. Try duplicating a galleon with Geminio, and it crumbles to worthless ash. Goblins oversee every step, their contractual oaths binding them to fidelity, yet their ledgers hide the true scale. Billions in Muggle pounds processed annually, dwarfing Diagon Alley's visible trade. Wizards emerge from the counters, richer in wizarding terms, pockets heavy with the clink of authenticity, unaware their Muggle earnings now bolster a bank that views them as mere clients in an eternal game. One slip in this delicate dance could expose it all. A fixer unmasked at the exchange, a vault of tainted coins discovered, scandals that would shatter the statute of secrecy. Gringotts guards these secrets fiercer than any dragon, their motto Fortius Quo Fidelius, etched not just in marble, but in the very flows of gold that bind worlds. And yet, for all this impenetrable financial fortress, vulnerabilities lurked even in its earliest modern days. Up next, Chapter 15, the 1991 break-in, a crack in the armour, a tale of audacious intrusion that exposed just how fragile the bank's armour could be, while Gringotts seamlessly converted those streams of Muggle pounds, dollars, and yen into gleaming galleons, sickles, and nuts, funneling them deep into its labyrinthine vaults. Few realised how vulnerable even the most fortified chambers could become. In 1991, that vulnerability cracked wide open when Quirinus Quirrell, the unassuming defence against the dark arts professor from Hogwarts, slipped past every layer of goblin vigilance to reach Vault 713. Picture the scene unfolding in the dim torchlight of Diagon Alley that summer. Quirrell, his turban hiding more than just a headache, approached the marble counters with the poise of a man on legitimate business. He presented a forged key, or so the official story goes, crafted with dark enchantments that mimic the vault's blood-binding signature. The goblins, ever bound by their ancient contracts, scrutinized it under flickering goblin-forged lamps, their sharp eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. No alarms wailed. No troll guards stirred from their shadowed posts. The high-security cart rattled to life, hurtling Quirrell through the twisting subterranean rails, past multiplying jewels that shimmered like false stars, and rivers of liquid fire that scorched the air with infernal heat. Deeper they plunged, the cart's brakes screeching against rune-etched tracks, designed to defy physics, whipping through caverns where the Earth's own heartbeat pulsed through the stone. Vault 713 loomed at last, its door a monolithic slab of enchanted bronze, veined with spells that could flay a thief's soul. Quirrell's gloved hand touched it, and it yielded. Inside, silence. No philosopher's stone. No elixir of immortality glinting on the pedestal where Nicholas Flamel and Albus Dumbledore had entrusted it. Just echoes and dust. Quirrell emerged unscathed, vanishing into the London crowds, his mission thwarted before it began. Re-examining Quirinus Quirrell's successful infiltration of Vault 713 reveals layers of intrigue that Gringotts has never fully explained. How did a single wizard, possessed by Voldemort's fragmented soul, bypass protections honed over 5 centuries? Eyewitness accounts from Goblin scribes, pieced together from leaked ministry parchments, describe Quirrell muttering incantations that bent light itself, cloaking his approach in invisibility deeper than any standard disillusionment charm. The key, not mere forgery, but a transfiguration laced with fiendfire residue, hot enough to sear through verification runes without triggering wards. Goblins later sealed the vault with triple bloodlocks, but whispers persist that Quirrell exploited a forgotten backdoor, a service tunnel, from the Goblin rebellions of the 18th century, mapped only in their secret ledgers. This breach wasn't blind luck. Enter the empty vault theory, a whisper among curse breakers and unspeakables that cuts to the bank's core duplicity. Why the empty vault theory suggests the bank knew the philosopher's stone was a target lies in the chilling precision of its absence. Flamel's stone, capable of brewing the elixir of life and transmuting base metals to gold, had sat untouched for centuries, until Dumbledore relocated it to Hogwarts mere weeks before Quirrell's raid. Gringotts logs, smudged and redacted in the Ministry archives, show unusual goblin activity around Vault 713 in early June. Carts rerouted, high-ranking curse setters summoned under veil of secrecy. No theft occurred because the prize was already gone, spirited away not by Dumbledore alone, but with goblin complicity. They knew. Voldemort's stirrings in Albania, Quirrell's furtive visits to Nocturne Alley for dark reagents. These threads converged in goblin intelligence networks finer than spider silk. By emptying the vault preemptively, they preserved their reputation while letting the wizarding world chase shadows, all while pocketing fees for enhanced security consultations from a grateful Dumbledore. The fallout of the first successful breach in centuries rippled far beyond that empty chamber. Goblin cartwrights toiled through the night, retrofitting tracks with anti-apparition fields and velocity wards that could shred a broom mid-flight. Troll guards, once solitary behemoths, patrolled in pairs, their clubs enchanted to detect imperious curses. Trust eroded overnight. Wizard clients demanded blood oaths from their bankers, and the Ministry dispatched oral patrols to Diagon Alley, their crimson robes clashing against the white marble like blood on snow. Gringotts' motto, Fortius Quo Fidelius, rang hollow as lawsuits piled up, families claiming lost heirlooms in the panic, though none could prove it. Deep in the Goblin High Command, a purge unfolded, scribes exiled to the Undercrofts, cart engineers vanishing into the vaults they built. Yet, the bank emerged stronger, vaults sealed tighter than dragon scales, as if the crack had been a deliberate test of their unbreakable fidelity. This 1991 incursion exposed fractures in Gringotts' armour that no amount of goblin gold could mend, hinting at alliances and foreknowledge that blurred the line between guardian and gambler. But the true darkness was just gathering, as Voldemort's shadow lengthened over the wizarding world. Up next, Chapter 16. The Second Wizarding War. The Dark Takeover, where Gringotts falls not to thieves, but to the Death Eaters themselves, and the vaults become tombs for the darkest secrets of all. That empty vault theory from Quirrell's brazen theft in 1991 lingered like a curse, hinting at secrets Gringotts might have known all along. But as the 90s wore on, those whispers of vulnerability turned into a full-scale siege. The Second Wizarding War wasn't just fought in the skies over Hogwarts or the streets of Hogsmeade. It seeped into the very vaults where wizarding fortune slept. Voldemort's return had already twisted the Ministry of Magic into his puppet. With Albus Dumbledore gone, the Ministry fell completely under the Dark Lord's sway by mid-1998. Wizards woke to Daily Prophet headlines, screaming loyalty oaths, Muggle-born registration acts, and the endless hunt for blood traitors. Gringotts, that gleaming marble fortress on Diagon Alley, stood as the last bastion of Goblin independence amid the chaos. Yet Voldemort saw it not as a neutral vault keeper, but as a treasure trove ripe for plunder. He moved with surgical precision, leveraging the Ministry's newfound power to nationalize Gringotts for a second time in its history. The first takeover had come centuries earlier, in the 1500s, when wizards wrested control from Goblin hands out of sheer paranoia. This one was darker, born of tyranny. Decrees flew from the Ministry like curses, official orders citing wartime security measures and protection of pure-blood assets. Goblin leaders protested in hushed tones within their underground chambers, their sharp features etched with fury. But the wand-wielding enforcers at the doors silenced any real rebellion. Overnight, the bank's autonomy evaporated. Gringotts became an arm of the regime, its glittering counters now echoing with the clipped accents of Ministry-appointed overseers. You can almost feel the chill in those halls. The goblins, with their long fingers and unblinking eyes, were shoved aside from their teleposts. In their place slithered Death Eaters, rebranded as so-called security consultants. These were no mere guards. They were Voldemort's inner circle, pale-faced wizards in black robes, wands holstered but ever ready, their snake-like eyes scanning every transaction. Bogrod and other goblin managers were demoted to clerical roles, fetching ledgers under the watchful gaze of these intruders. The air grew thick with the scent of dark magic, a faint ozone tang, mixing with the usual metallic whiff of galleons. Customers, mostly pure bloods now, whispered nervously as masked figures loomed behind the counters, stamping approvals with the Ministry's seal. A twisted serpent entwining a galleon. This takeover wasn't just about control. It was a heist on a national scale, with Death Eaters embedded deep in the operations. The systematic freezing of undesirable assets began in earnest. Muggle-borns, blood traitors, and anyone on the Ministry's blacklist saw their accounts locked tighter than a dragon's hoard. Owl Post arrived at homes with curt notices. Your funds are sequestered for investigation. But investigation was a lie. Those galleons, sickles, and nuts, hard-earned from years of quiet lives, vanished into unmarked vaults reserved for the Dark Lord's coffers. Hermione Granger's own research in the Ministry archives later exposed the rot. Ledgers doctored to show, forfeitures, wealth siphoned to fund Death Eater salaries, cursed artifacts, and worse. Picture the human cost. Families like the Grangers, dentists from the Muggle world who had scrimped to fill their vault with wizarding gold for their daughter's future, watched it all evaporate. Goblins, bound by ancient contracts, could only watch as wizards rifled through vaults under imperious curses or outright threats. One teller, a grizzled goblin named Griphook, bathed in the shadows, his claws twitching at the injustice. Pure blood sympathizers kept their fortunes intact, even swelled them with confiscated spoils, while the underground tracks hummed with carts, hauling seized treasures deeper into the earth. The goblins' motto, Fortius Quo Fidelius, strength through loyalty, rang hollow now. They crafted the unbreakable charms, mined the depths, yet wizard betrayed them again, echoing centuries of resentment. Whispers spread through the caverns. This was no different from Ranrock's rebellion 2 centuries prior, or the wand bans that stripped goblins of power. Some goblins dragged their feet on orders, miscounting stacks of galleons, just enough to slow the flow. Others vanished into side tunnels, plotting in the glow of phosphorescent fungi. But resistance was perilous. Trolls at the gates now answered to Death Eater whistles, not goblin horns. Diagon Alley transformed under this dark cloud. The once bustling exchange counters, where Muggle pounds turned to precious metals, ground to a halt for anyone without approved blood status. Wizards lined up at dawn, clutching forged papers, while snatchers patrolled the alleys outside, dragging suspects straight to Azkaban, or worse, to Gringotts for a public asset strip. The multiplying charms in high-security vaults worked overtime, but not for protection. Death Eaters tested them, laughing as treasures duplicated into oblivion under experimental curses. Voldemort himself never set foot in the marble lobby, but his presence permeated every brick. Portraits of past Goblin bankers hung crookedly, their painted eyes averted. The Ukrainian iron-bellied dragon in the deepest pit stirred uneasily, chains rattling as if sensing the shift. This nationalization funded the war machine, potions, holy juice for spies, even bribes to wavering neutrals. Billions in wizarding currency, if you could tally it, flowed unchecked, all while the goblins tallied their grudges. Yet cracks formed even here. Whispers of a trio of young wizards, plotting a desperate heist, reached goblin ears. Griphook, that sideline teller, harboured dreams of payback, his eyes fixed on a legendary artifact hidden in plain sight, one that could tip the scales. But that's a tale for chapter 17. Griphook's betrayal and the sword of Gryffindor. What drove him to turn on his temporary masters? And how did Godric Gryffindor's blade become the spark that could shatter Voldemort's grip on the bank? As the Death Eaters tightened their grip on Gringotts, sidelining the Goblin staff and turning the bank's marble halls into a fortress of fear, one Goblin in particular began to see an opportunity amid the chaos. Griphook, the sharp-featured cursebreaker with a hooked nose and eyes like polished obsidian, had long nursed grievances against the wizards who treated his kind as little more than servants. He'd escaped the bank's clutches after a tense encounter with Harry Potter at Malfoy Manor, but freedom came laced with bitterness. Wizards had imprisoned him, questioned him harshly, and now, under Voldemort's regime, goblins were mere shadows in their own domain. Griphook's path crossed Harry's again in the shadowed safe house of Shell Cottage, where the sea wind whispered through cracks in the walls, and the air hung heavy with salt and suspicion. Harry, desperate for a way into the Lestrange vault, offered Griphook freedom and gold, but Griphook demanded more. His mind turned not to galleons, but to a gleaming relic that embodied centuries of goblin outrage. The sword of Gryffindor, forged in goblin fires deep within the mountains. Its blade rippled like frozen lightning, etched with runes that sang of unmatched craftsmanship. Goblins like Griphook viewed it not as a wizard's trophy, but as their own creation, stolen through deceit. To understand Griphook's fury, you have to delve into the tangled history of goblin-wizard relations, where the sword stands as a stark symbol of exploitation. Godric Gryffindor, one of the Hogwarts founders, received the sword as a gift from the goblin master craftsman Ragnak I around the 10th century. Wizards celebrated it as a mark of alliance, a weapon imbued with basilisk venom during its service in the Chamber of Secrets. But goblins saw it differently. In their culture, when they craft a blade or helm, it remains theirs forever. The maker loans it to the wielder, expecting its return once the deed is done. Gryffindor never returned it. Instead, he claimed ownership, passing it down through wizard generations, enshrining it in Hogwarts' protective cases. This wasn't a one-off slight. It mirrored broader injustices. Goblins barred from wand use, their superior metalwork dismissed as mere trade, their rebellions crushed by ministry forces. The sword became a banner for goblin pride, proof that wizards profited from goblin genius without reciprocity. Griphook's motivations ran deeper than personal vendetta. He'd witnessed the bank's vaults bulge with wizard hoards, gold piled like dragon scales, artifacts glowing with stolen magic, while goblins toiled under enchanted oaths that bound them tighter than chains. The Second Wizarding War amplified this, with Death Eaters barking orders from the teller's counters. Griphook saw wizards at their greediest, commandeering goblin security for their dark ends. Helping Harry wasn't about loyalty to the boy who lived. It was payback. Griphook agreed to the plan. teaching them the intricacies of Gringotts' defences. The blood wards that screamed at imposters, the multiplying curses in high vaults, the labyrinthine cart tracks plunging into Earth's fiery core. In his eyes, infiltrating the Lestrange vault held a dual purpose. Harry sought the Horcrux cup, but Griphook eyed the sword, rumoured to be stored there under false pretences. What Griphook truly craved was reclamation, not robbery. To him, the sword was Goblin property, wrongfully held by Bellatrix Lestrange among her family's cursed treasures. Wizards had twisted Goblin law for centuries, declaring crafted items theirs upon gift. Griphook framed the heist as justice, slipping past troll guards, whose clubs thudded like distant thunder, navigating the vault's scorching breath, where treasures duplicated into Infernos, seizing back what belonged underground with its makers. He confided in Harry during hushed planning sessions, his voice a gravelly hiss echoing Goblin lore. Tales of Ragnar's betrayal, of blades that wept for their forges. Harry, ever the strategist, promised the sword as payment, blind to the cultural chasm. Griphook's betrayal would come swiftly in the vault's a crimson glow, but his reasoning stemmed from a lifetime of watching wizards hoard Goblin legacy. Picture the tension building in those final days before the breach. Griphook's hooked fingers traced maps of the underground maze, his eyes gleaming with visions of the sword's hilt. Goblin-forged rubies, catching vault light like Goblin blood. He resented Harry for wielding it briefly at Hogwarts, purifying it in basilisk venom without a thought to its origins. Yet he played the ally, using a security goblin to gain entry, his face twisted under human disguise. The complex motivations of this goblin, who helped Harry Potter reveal a mind sharpened by discrimination, a pragmatic survivor who leveraged wizard desperation to right ancient wrongs. Loyalty to goblins trumped any fleeting bond with the trio. The sword's symbolic importance in goblin-wizard relations made it worth the double cross. As alarms wailed and flames erupted in the depths, Griphook snatched the sword, his laughter a guttural bark amid the chaos. He abandoned them to the dragon's roar, slipping away with what he deemed rightfully his. This act exposed the fragility of trust in Gringotts' foundations, where goblin fidelity to contracts clashed with their hunger for restitution. But the full saga of that daring incursion, the one that shook the bank's impenetrable core, unfolds next in Chapter 18, the 1998 heist, the impossible breach. How did three teenagers outwit an army of defences and escape on the back of a chained beast? Griphook's grudge against wizardkind ran deep enough to risk everything, handing Harry Potter the one leverage that might crack Gringott wide open. The promise of Gryffindor's sword, a goblin-forged relic they saw as stolen property. But trust between them was as fragile as a house elf's contract. And on that fateful day in 1998, it propelled the trio into the heart of the bank's most impenetrable fortress, the Lestrange vault. Disguised under Polyjuice potion, Harry stared out from Bellatrix Lestrange's own face, her wild curls framing eyes that weren't hers. Ron, as her wand hand Travers, and Hermione as the bogus Bogrod, the senior goblin manager under Imperius, strode through the gleaming marble lobby. The air hummed with the clink of galleons and the low mutter of goblin tellers, their sharp fingers tallying fortunes. No one questioned them at first. The Imperius held Bogrod in thrall, his voice droning compliance as he verified the Lestrange key with a drop of blood. The massive doors to the vaults swung open at 8 minutes past their entry, revealing the yawning pit of the cart tracks snaking into darkness. They piled into the rickety cart, Griphook clutching the sword like a talisman, Hermione's grip white-knuckled on the rails. The plunge began at the 10-minute mark, a stomach-lurching freefall through torch-lit tunnels, veined with crystal, speeds hitting what felt like 100 miles an hour. Wind screamed past, blurring walls into a streak of stone and shadow, the G-force pinning them back as curves whipped them left, then plunged 1,000 feet straight down. Griphook shouted warnings over the roar. Security spells ahead, the thief's downfall curse that scrambled memories. At 12 minutes in, They blasted through a shimmering barrier, Harry's head spinning but intact, the cart screeching onto level 7's final spur. Dismounting at 13 minutes, feet unsteady on the damp ledge, they faced the vault door, a colossal slab of enchanted metal, its surface rippling like living mercury. Bogrod pressed the key into the lock, blood verifying pure Lestrange lineage, and at 14 minutes exactly, the door groaned inward. Inside, the vault sprawled like a dragon's hoard. Mountains of gold, jewels winking in the dim goblin light, artifacts from forgotten wars piled in careless splendor. But Griphook's hiss cut the awe short. Touch nothing. The air thickened with latent magic, every coin a potential trap. They began the search at 15 minutes, moving with agonizing care, wands lit like miners' lamps. Harry sifted through necklaces and goblets, each item radiating a faint, oily curse. Ron edged along a shelf of crowns, Hermione scanning ledgers etched in goblin runes. At 17 minutes, disaster nearly struck. Ron's sleeve brushed a silver locket, and it split into 2, then 4, the copies tumbling with a metallic clatter. The Geminio curse activated, treasures duplicating exponentially, a cascade of gold filling the floor like rising lava. But the real horror was flagrante. The duplicates burned white hot, searing flesh on contact, flames licking up from molten edges. The trio dodged the spreading inferno, the vault shrinking under the weight of multiplying wealth. Harry's glasses fogged with heat, sweat stinging as he clambered over a swelling pile. Griphook urged them on, immune to the wizard curses binding the vault, his claws raking through the chaos unscathed. At 19 minutes, Hermione spotted it. Helga Hufflepuff's cup, nestled amid a tangle of chains, its badger emblem gleaming innocently. She levitated it free with a precise Wingardium Leviosa, the vessel bobbing untouched, the curses foiled by their caution and Griphook's guidance. No direct handling, no multiplication triggered on the prize itself, but alarms shattered the triumph at 21 minutes. Bogrod, imperious fraying under vault stresses, babbled for security. The door sealed shut, and the real nightmare erupted. Every disturbed treasure went berserk. Coins bred into avalanches, goblets shattered into fiery shards, the floor buckling under thousands of tons of replicated gold. Ron burned his hand on a falling sickle, Hermione blasted a path with Reducto, Harry shielding Griphook, who now clutched the sword tighter, betrayal flickering in his eyes. They battered the door at 24 minutes, spells ricocheting off reinforced goblin steel, the heat turning the air to steam. Escape demanded the unthinkable. At 26 minutes, Griphook summoned the Guardian, the Ukrainian iron-belly dragon, chained in the depths below high-security vaults, its scales scarred from centuries underground, eyes milky with rage. It thrashed as they levitated onto its back amid raining treasure. Hermione's spells loosened the chains at 28 minutes, and the beast reared, blasting fire that melted the vault door to slag. They burst free into the tunnel at 29 minutes, the dragon's wings scraping stone, its roar echoing like thunder. The rampage carved devastation through Gringott's underbelly. At 31 minutes, claws gouged the cart tracks, twisting rails into pretzels and collapsing tunnels in cascades of rubble. Vault doors buckled, security trolls pulverized underfoot, goblin alarms wailing as the beast surged upward, smashing through 30 levels of stone. Ceilings caved, sending marble chunks plummeting from the lobby above. Pillars cracked, telecounters splintered, the grand atrium flooding with dust and debris. The structural damage rippled topside, Diagon Alley's north face scarred with fissures, repair charms straining for weeks after. Yet the trio slipped into the chaos, tumbling off the dragon into a side street at 34 minutes. The cup secured, Griphook vanishing with the sword in a double cross that left Harry empty-handed but alive. The goblins sealed the breach, but whispers spread. How had wizard curses like Geminio and Flagrante, designed to incinerate intruders, failed so utterly against those three? Their evasion wasn't luck. It was precision born of desperation, sidestepping the traps that had felled countless thieves before. That cup they snatched, pulls us straight into Chapter 19, the Horcrux Scandal, where the real darkness hidden in Gringott's depths unravels in ways that still haunt the wizarding world. As the dust settled from that chaotic escape, with the Ukrainian iron-bellied dragon roaring through the London skies, Harry, Ron, and Hermione clutched Helga Hufflepuff's cup, its golden surface gleaming faintly under the sun. They had breached the unbreachable, evading the multiplying treasures that burned and scorched everything they touched, slipping past the goblin alarms that wailed like banshees from the depths. But what they carried wasn't merely a stolen heirloom from Bellatrix Lestrange's vault. It was something far more sinister, a fragment of pure malevolence hidden right there in Gringotts, the place wizards boasted as the safest on Earth. That revelation hit like a curse in the aftermath. The cup, delicate and ancient, had been twisted into a Horcrux by Voldemort himself. A splinter of his soul shattered during one of his murders and sealed inside to cheat death. Gringotts, with its labyrinthine vaults carved into the Earth's core, guarded by dragons and spells older than the bank itself, was supposed to be impenetrable, a fortress where even the air hummed with goblin-forged enchantments. Yet here in Vault 713, no deeper still in the Lestrange family holdings, Voldemort had stashed his darkest secret. Wizards trusted the goblins' greed-bound oaths, their motto, Fortius Quo Fidelius, etched in every contract to keep their fortunes safe. But a piece of Voldemort's soul was stored in the safest place on Earth, festering undetected amid piles of gold and heirlooms, its presence a violation that no blood key or troll guard could sense. Picture the slow seep of that darkness over the years. Bellatrix, ever the fanatic, had deposited the cup sometime after its creation, perhaps during the First War's frenzy, when Death Eaters funneled their ill-gotten gains into Gringotts under the Ministry's watchful but corrupt eye. The vault's contents multiplied under protective charms, galleons breeding like rabbits, jewels flashing eternally. But beneath it all, the Horcrux pulsed with necrotic magic, a foreign rot in the bank's meticulously woven wards. Goblins pride themselves on crafting the purest enchantments, blood oaths that bind tighter than dragonhide. Yet this soul fragment, born of murder and mutilation, might have quietly unravelled them from within. Consider how the bank's internal magic began to falter in subtle ways leading up to the heist. Those Geminio curses the trio cast. They exploded the vault's treasures into fiery duplicates far beyond what the spell should have done, as if the Horcrux amplified the chaos, twisting protective replication into a weaponized inferno. Flagrante charms ignited with unnatural fury, scorching flesh deeper than any standard hex. Even the cart rides down those twisting tracks felt off during wartime. Goblins whispered of carts derailing without cause, lights flickering in tunnels that never flickered before. How the presence of a Horcrux may have corrupted the bank's internal magic, seeping like ink through parchment, weakening the very spells that made Gringotts a legend. Wizards overlooked it, too arrogant to question goblin vigilance. But the goblins knew. They felt the vaults hum sour, the ancient pacts straining under an evil no contract could contain. The scandal erupted fully after Voldemort's fall, when the Ministry's grip loosened and goblin rule returned. Bellatrix was gone, struck down in the Battle of Hogwarts. Her brother-in-law, Rodolphus Lestrange, captured and imprisoned. Their vault stripped bare, but the Lestrange family estate, through surviving relatives and legal proxies, didn't let it die quietly. They launched a ferocious legal battle against the bank, dragging Gringotts before the Wissengamot in a case that filled the Daily Prophet for months. Claims flew thick. Negligence in security, failure to detect the unauthorized deposit of a cursed object, even complicity during the Death Eater occupation when Ministry overseers turned a blind eye. The Lestranges demanded reparations for the lost cup, valued not just in galleons but in its historical significance, plus damages for every scorched sickle and melted necklace from the multiplying mayhem. Goblin lawyers, sharp as their forged blades, countered fiercely. Gringotts had honoured every blood oath. The vault responded only to Lestrange blood, and Bellatrix herself had placed the item there. No goblin cursebreaker could pierce a Horcrux's veil without explicit instruction, and wizards had forbidden them from meddling in such dark arts since the wand banned centuries ago. Testimonies poured in, goblins recounting how the vault's magic sang wrong for years, ignored by Death Eater guards who lounged at the tellers' desks. Witnesses described courtroom clashes where goblin representatives hurled enchanted ledgers across the chamber, proving the bank's logs clean, while Lestrange solicitors waved blackened vault shards as evidence of corruption. The hearings dragged through 1999 and into the next year, exposing fractures in wizard-goblin trust. Wizards gasped at revelations of Horcrux traces lingering in the vault's stones, faint echoes that cursebreakers later confirmed had destabilized high-security wards. Gringotts stonewalled on details, citing client confidentiality, but leaks suggested the bank had quietly purged other suspicious deposits post-war, fueling conspiracy whispers. The Lestranges lost on most counts. The Wizengamot ruled the bank blameless for a depositor's own curse, but won minor concessions, like waived fees on remaining family vaults. It was a Pyrrhic victory, leaving bad blood that simmered long after the gavel fell. Yet this scandal peeled back layers on Gringotts' true vulnerabilities, how even the safest vaults could harbour horrors that outlast gold. The Horcrux's taint lingered in goblin lore, a cautionary tale whispered in the marble halls. As you let these echoes settle in your mind, drifting towards sleep, hold on to the question of what came next for the bank amid the ruins. That's the heart of Chapter 20. Post-war reconstruction and goblin sovereignty, where goblins clawed back more than control. They reshaped wizarding finance forever. You won't want to miss how they turned defeat into dominance. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. That lingering taint from Voldemort's soul fragment in the Lestrange vault didn't just vanish with the Horcrux's destruction. It left Gringotts' deepest enchantments flickering, like a grand clockwork heart skipping beats after years under a curse. The goblins, ever vigilant in their craft, sensed the corruption seeping into the stone itself, the multiplying spells on treasures growing erratic, the blood wards humming with unnatural discord. As the Battle of Hogwarts raged to its close in 1998, and the Dark Lord's body crumbled to ash, the bank's goblin overseers moved with calculated precision, their sharp eyes already turning from the chaos above to the sovereignty they had lost once more. You can picture the scene in those first hazy days of victory for the wizarding world. Diagon Alley, scarred and smouldering, its marble facade on the north side pockmarked by spells and debris. But Gringotts standing defiant amid the rubble, its white pillars cracked yet unbowed. The Ministry, freshly liberated from Death Eater clutches, attempted to assert its old oversight, sending Aurors to assist with the cleanup, their wands drawn as if the goblins were just another faction to be managed. But the goblins had endured enough. Griphook's betrayal earlier that year, trading secrets for the Sword of Gryffindor, had been a personal affront, yet it also ignited a fierce unity among them, a reminder that wizard promises were as fleeting as fiend fire. In the shadowed boardrooms deep beneath the lobby, where the air hangs heavy with the scent of aged gold and molten silver, goblin elders convened under the glow of enchanted lanterns. They invoked ancient charters from the bank's founding in 1474, documents etched in unbreakable goblin silver, clauses that predated even the soap blizzard of 1378. No longer would they tolerate ministry meddling, not after 4 centuries of the first takeover in the 1500s, nor the recent Voldemort orchestrated seizure following Dumbledore's death. With Voldemort's fall, the goblins issued their ultimatum: full restitution of control, or Gringotts would seal its vaults to all wizardkind. halting the flow of galleons that propped up the fragile post-war economy. The wizards balked at first. Inglesey Shacklebolt's interim government scrambling to negotiate amid their own reconstruction woes. But the goblins held firm, their tellers vanishing from counters overnight, replaced by terse notices in every daily profit. Operations suspended until goblin autonomy is affirmed. Within weeks, as wizard families clamoured for access to their hoarded fortunes, the ministry relented. By midsummer of 1998, Gringotts flew its own banners once more. Sleek black standards emblazoned with the motto, Cautius quo fidelius, strength through loyalty, reclaiming total autonomy after the Dark Lord's defeat. It was a quiet revolution, bloodless but ironclad, restoring the bank to goblin hands for what they vowed would be the final time. Yet autonomy came at a steep price, one carved into the very halls that had witnessed the war's most audacious breach. The main hall, that vast cavern of polished marble and glittering chandeliers, lay in ruins from the Ukrainian iron-bellied dragon's rampage during Harry Potter's escape. The beast, unchained from its cavernous lair hundreds of feet below, had burst through the lobby in a whirlwind of scales and fire, shattering columns, scorching teller desks, and sending patrons fleeing in terror. Goblin cart tracks twisted like broken bones, and the high-vaulted ceiling rained debris for days. The destruction wasn't mere collateral. It symbolized the fragility of even Gringott's impenetrable defenses against a Potter-level incursion. One boy, two friends, and a stolen dragon rewriting the bank's law, Gringotts demanded reparations that stunned the wizarding elite. 50 million galleons up front, thus perpetual interest tied to the dragon's upkeep and the reconstruction of not just the physical structure, but the magical lattice woven into every stone. They billed the ministry for the imperious curses, used by the trio on their own kind, cataloguing each violated contract with meticulous ledgers. Wizards like the Malfoys, whose vaults had funded the Death Eaters, faced personal levies, their fortunes siphoned to fund goblin shipwrights repairing the cart systems and curse breakers purging Horcrux echoes. The goblins oversaw the work themselves. Teams of silversmiths and rune masters labouring through the night, voices echoing in the vast emptiness as they rebuilt stronger, embedding new alloys that resisted dragonfire and polyjuice deceptions alike. This wasn't vengeance. It was goblin justice, precise as a cursebreaker's chisel. The reparations poured in, transforming the main hall into something grander, a fortified atrium with reinforced vaults visible through armoured glass. Troll guards doubled in number, their clubs now tipped with anti-apparition spikes. But the true evolution lay deeper, in the tightening of security protocols designed to ensure a Potter-level breach never happened again. High-security vaults, once reliant on keys and blood drops, now demanded multi-layered oaths. Verbal vows sworn on goblin-forged blades, biometric echoes of a wizard's magical signature, and guardian sprites that patrolled the tracks, invisible sentinels programmed to detect even the faintest whiff of deception. Deeper still, the cart rides grew labyrinthine, paths rerouted through anti-gravity chutes and illusionary dead ends, while the multiplying charms on treasures were recalibrated with fail-safes that turned replicas into incendiary traps. Dragon handlers, scarred veterans of the Iron Belly incident, implemented rotation schedules for the beasts, breeding hybrids less prone to panic. Goblins even petitioned for, and received, exclusive rights to wandless spellwork within the bank's depths, a concession wrested from a wary ministry. Breaches like Quirrell's in Vault 713, or the trio's heist became cautionary tales, etched into training grimoires, ensuring that Gringotts emerged from the war not just sovereign, but invincible. These changes rippled outward, mending the frayed goblin-wizard relations strained by centuries of discrimination. The wand bans, the rebellions like Ranrock's in the 1890s, the endless cycle of trust and betrayal. Goblins reclaimed their role as the unyielding guardians of wizarding wealth, their greed tempered by loyalty, their craftsmanship unmatched. and as the marble gleamed anew under Diagon Alley's sun, whispers spread of vaults holding more than gold. Ancient magics, forbidden artifacts, secrets that even the reparations couldn't fully unearth. But the story of Gringotts doesn't end with reconstruction. Up next in Chapter 21, the Calamity Era. Unlimited Credit. We'll explore how the bank unleashed a financial floodgate that reshaped the wizarding world in ways no one saw coming. Credits flowing without limit, pulling even the most dangerous players into its web. What hidden deals fueled that era, and who paid the ultimate price? Stay with us as we delve deeper. With Goblin sovereignty firmly restored and the reparations for their shattered main hall finally settled, Gringotts turned its gaze toward an era of unexpected prosperity, one that would test the bank's ancient loyalties in ways no one could have foreseen. The vaults brimmed once more, their depths echoing with the clink of freshly deposited galleons, as wizards from every corner of Britain flocked back to the marble facade on Diagon Alley. Yet beneath this facade of recovery simmered something far stranger, a shift in the very fabric of wizarding finance that would draw the bank into the heart of a shadowy crisis. You can almost feel the hush in those grand halls during the early 2010s, the air thick with the scent of aged parchment and molten gold. Goblin tellers, their sharp eyes glinting under lantern light, began extending credit like never before. Lines of credit without precedent, vast sums handed out with little more than a signature and a blood quill's prick. Wizards who had scraped by in the war's aftermath suddenly found themselves flush with borrowing power, funding lavish expansions to their manors, experimental potion labs, even fleets of enchanted broomsticks for Quidditch leagues on the rise. Why this sudden generosity from creatures so famed for their ironclad contracts? Whispers in the alleys suggested the Goblins sensed a storm brewing, a way to bind wizards closer through debt, ensuring loyalty when darker days returned. But this wasn't mere opportunism. The calamity had begun to unfold, a mysterious unravelling of magic itself, where fragments of the wizarding world's history tore free from their anchors in time and space, manifesting as threats across the land. Artifacts long buried in Gringotts vaults flickered into existence miles away. Cursed objects roamed unchecked, and echoes of past spells struck without warning. The ministry scrambled, their auras stretched thin as reports flooded in from Hogsmeade to the Scottish Highlands. In the midst of this chaos, Gringotts positioned itself not as a bystander, but as an indispensable ally, leveraging its unparalleled records to pierce the veil of the unknown. Picture the Goblin ledgers, towering stacks of enchanted vellum that tracked every newt's journey through the wizarding economy. These weren't ordinary books. They pulsed with subtle charms, mapping transactions across families, businesses, even black market dealings hidden in Nocturne Alley. When the Ministry launched their calamity investigations, poring over clues from these wandering magical anomalies, Gringotts opened select doors. Cautiously, contractually, financial trails led straight to culprits evading capture, exposing purchases of rare ingredients for dark rituals or sudden windfalls from cursed relic sales. One such thread unravelled a web far more sinister than stray artifacts. At the centre of it all lurked Gareth Greengrass, a name that sent chills through the bank's counters. Descended from an old pure-blood line, Greengrass had slipped into the shadows after the war, gathering a cadre of unforgivables, remnants of dark magic sympathisers who rejected the new peace. They called themselves Avengers of the Old Ways, wielding spells long banned, twisting calamity fragments into weapons that could shatter ministry barriers or summon spectral armies. Greengrass, with his cunning mind and bottomless ambition, funded their operations through proxies, siphoning Goblin credit into hidden vaults abroad. But Gringotts' trackers were relentless, their algorithms woven from centuries of Goblin craft, sniffing out anomalies like a niffler on a galleon trail. The hunt unfolded in whispers and late-night summons. Auras arrived at the bank under cover of disillusionment charms, poring over ledgers that glowed faintly in the dim light, revealing Greengrass's pattern. A surge in loans to shell companies in Bulgaria, withdrawals timed with calamity outbreaks near ancient battle sites. One transaction, a massive withdrawal for exotic beast imports, traced back to a Bulgarian treasured labyrinth remnant, a calamity echo harbouring forbidden creatures. The Goblins, true to their motto of strength through loyalty, shared just enough to tip the scales, their contracts shielding the bank's deeper secrets while dooming the fugitives. Greengrass's downfall came swiftly in a raid on a derelict manor in Wiltshire, his vaults frozen mid-transfer, his unforgivable allies scattering like fiendfire sparks. This alliance between bank and ministry marked a fragile détente, goblins wielding their financial web like a Patronus against encroaching darkness. Yet questions lingered in the vaulted shadows. Did Gringott's unlimited credit fuel the calamity's spread, tempting wizards into reckless pursuits that loosened magic's bonds? Or was it a calculated gambit, binding the wizarding world tighter to goblin oversight? The era exposed the bank's dual nature, guardian of fortunes and puppeteer of fates, its ledgers holding truths that could topple empires. As the calamity's grip began to wane, Gringotts delved even deeper into its vaults, unearthing tomes and relics that demanded a different breed of guardian. In the next chapter, The Cursebreaker's Handbook, we'll uncover the forbidden manual that trained those daring souls who plumbed the bank's most perilous depths. What spells it revealed, the curses it barely contained, and the one secret that could rewrite goblin history forever. As the dust settled from the hunt for Gareth Greengrass and those shadowy, unforgivable members, Gringotts turned its gaze inward, fortifying not just its vaults, but the very spells that made them impenetrable. Enter the Cursebreaker's Handbook, a closely guarded tome passed down through goblin generations, detailing the arcane defenses that turn mere stone caverns into fortresses of forbidden magic. This handbook isn't some dusty relic gathering cobwebs in a Diagon Alley shop. It's the lifeline for Gringotts' elite Cursebreakers, those goblin specialists, and occasionally wizard hires like Bill Weasley, who venture into the bank's deepest recesses and beyond to unravel or reinforce the most vicious enchantments. Picture the high-security vaults, carved 1,000 feet below London's streets, where the air grows thick with the hum of ancient power. These aren't your everyday strong rooms for galleons and sickles. They're labyrinths rigged with spells so intricate, so malevolent, that even the most cunning thief would think twice. Take the Geminio curse for starters. Whisper its incantation, and any treasure it touches doesn't just multiply, it breeds endlessly, each duplicate fiercer than the last, clawing at intruders with jagged edges that burn like fiend fire. In the Lestrange vault breach, Harry and his friends triggered it on everything from gold coins to heirloom goblets, turning a quick grab into a frantic scramble through a swelling tide of scalding metal. But that's just the surface layer. Deeper vaults layer it with flagrante, which sets the duplicates ablaze on contact, searing flesh to the bone, while the originals remain untouched, mocking the thief's agony. Then there's the Protego Diabolica variant, twisted by goblin ingenuity to form invisible walls of cursed flame that adapt to the intruder's intent. Step too close with greed in your heart, and it erupts in violet infernos, keyed to your magical signature, feeding on your own spells to grow stronger. Blood verification seals the deal. Only a drop from the vault's true owner unlocks the final ward, but tamper with it, and the curse rebounds, aging you decades in seconds, or summoning spectral guardians from the owner's lineage. These spells interweave like roots in ancient soil, each one feeding the next, creating a symphony of doom that no finite incantatum can silence. High-security vaults go further, employing the rarely spoken Fidelius Cascade, where the vault's location shifts within the catacomb maze, unless you know the precise passphrase whispered in gobbledygook. Fail, and you're trapped in looping corridors haunted by echoes of past breaches. Screams from the 1892 Ranrock invasion still linger, drawing disoriented foes into pitfalls lined with acromantula silk that tightens like a noose. And at the core, the dragon's lair, guarded by Ukrainian ironbellies, dosed with subjugation potions, their flames enchanted to seek out imperiused goblins or polyjuiced wizards, turning betrayal into barbecue. Gringotts doesn't stop at theory. Every cursebreaker undergoes a brutal training regimen, especially those stationed in Egypt's sun-blasted tombs or the Peruvian jungles beyond. It begins in the bank's subterranean academies, where recruits, mostly young goblins with razor-sharp claws and sharper minds, spend months dissecting replica curses on dummy vaults. They learn to identify the faint ozone tang of a Gemino trap, or the icy prickle of a blood ward by scent alone, owning instincts through blindfolded drills that last days. By dawn of their second year, they're shipped to Gringott's Egyptian outpost, a fortress carved into the Valley of the Kings, where Pharaoh's tombs serve as live training grounds. Here, under the whip of veteran breakers, like the legendary Tertius, they dismantle real-world curses. Anubis wards that summon jackal shades, scarab swarms enchanted to devour memories, or the dreaded Pharaoh's grasp, which petrifies limbs while whispering doubts into the mind. Trainees rappel into flooded crypts, their torches flickering against murals that animate to lash out with hieroglyphic spears, forcing them to counter with precise engorgio reversals or risk drowning in swelling sands. Those who survive advance to beyond postings. Peru for Incan crystal mazes that refract spells into lethal rainbows, or Cambodian ruins where Khmer Nagas coil from stone, their venom curses lingering for centuries. The regimen demands total immersion, no wands for the first 6 months, relying on goblin-forged daggers etched with counter runes. Sleep deprivation simulations mimic vault breaches, where alarms blare and multiplying guardians swarm, teaching recruits to cast non-verbally under panic. Only the top 1% earn the handbook's full annotation, inked in blood that reveals hidden pages under moonlight. But why does Gringotts hoard artifacts alongside gold? It's no accident. Goblins view wizard treasures not as mere valuables but as masterpieces of craft, echoes of their own suppressed artistry. That sword of Gryffindor, goblin-made and gleaming with goblin pride, sits in vaults not for safekeeping, but as a testament to what wizards borrow and rarely return. Ancient relics like Helga Hufflepuff's cup pulse with latent magic. Horcruxes, yes, but also amplifiers of power that could topple ministries or fuel rebellions. The bank stockpiles them because gold is fleeting. Artifacts endure, holding secrets like Ranrock's sought ancient magic, or the Philosopher's Stone's transmutation lore. Goblins demand collateral in craft, not coin, ensuring wizards' greed binds them to precise contracts. Vaults brim with cursed diadems, soul-trapping amulets, and rune stones that whisper prophecies, all insured against wizard folly. Hoarding them centralizes power, letting Gringotts wield economic leverage while studying their depths, turning the bank into a living archive of wizarding sins. This relentless guardianship kept breaches rare, even through wars and heists, but whispers persist of vaults holding even darker prizes. Artifacts that could shatter the fragile peace between goblins and wizards. Which brings us to Chapter 23, the Goblin-Wizard Cold War, where simmering tensions finally ignite into open conflict, revealing how close Gringotts came to unleashing its hoarded fury on the world above. Those curse breakers, hardened by years in the scorching sands of Egypt, drilling endlessly on vault wards and ancient hexes, eventually return to the echoing marble halls of Gringotts. They step off those rickety minecarts, their leather aprons scarred from tomb raids, only to find the air thicker than ever with unspoken grudges. Goblins who've mastered spells that could shatter Sphinx riddles now patrol the very vaults they protect, eyes sharp under hooded brows, while wizards above ground whisper about loyalties that might snap like brittle wandwood. This simmering rift defines the Goblin-Wizard Cold War today, a standoff etched into every transaction at the teller's counter. Picture the goblins hunched over ledgers in the dim lamplight of the lobby, their long fingers tallying galleons with mechanical precision, yet their minds churning with centuries of sleights. Wizards stride in, cloaks swirling, demanding access to vaults they've never personally guarded, treating the bank like a public service rather than the goblin-engineered fortress it is. Trust eroded long ago by wand bans and ministry takeovers now manifests in the smallest exchanges. A goblin's curt nod instead of a bow, a wizard's lingering glance at the security wands holstered just out of reach. It's not open war, but a quiet siege, where every vault key turned echoes the fragility of their alliance. At the heart of this chill beats the wand rights movement, a goblin uprising disguised as civil discourse, sparked in the shadowed goblin forges beneath Diagon Alley. It demands what wizards have hoarded since the Statute of Secrecy, the legal right for goblins to own and wield wands, no longer content with crafting the finest ones, those sleek and unyielding cores of dragon heartstring and phoenix feather that wizards prized. Goblins argue they deserve to use them too. Protests ripple through the underground warrens, chants of "Fortius quo fidelius," twisted into calls for arming the oppressed. Wizards scoff, citing old treaties that paint goblins as too volatile, too greedy for such power. But the movement gains traction among the bank's own ranks, and nowhere does it hit harder than the security staff. Those frontline goblins who've stared down thieves and dragons alike. Trained curse breakers, like the ones from Egypt, now led picket lines outside the main entrance, their pickaxes swapped for placards reading "Wands for Wardens." Without wands, they rely on brute force and troll enforcers, navigating vaults laced with wizard-set spells that mock their craftsmanship. Imperious echoes from the war still haunt them, blood verifications that burn like accusations of disloyalty. The movement's push has slowed patrols, left high-security carts idle in sidings as staff demand concessions or walk off. Wizards entering the bank now face delays, furtive goblin glares, and whispers of sabotage. Security protocols fraying at the edges because the guards feel naked without a proper wand in hand. This deadlock teeters the entire wizarding world on a razor's edge, one bank strike away from total collapse. Gringotts isn't just a repository, it's the lifeblood, the only vein pumping gold through Britain's magical economy. No wizarding ATMs, no muggle-style branches. Everything funnels through those white marble steps. Imagine the panic if tellers shuttered windows, if vault carts ground to a halt, ministry salaries frozen, Hogwarts tuition unpaid, potion ingredient trades halted mid-barter. Pure blood estates would starve first, their hoarded heirlooms useless without liquidity, while half-blood entrepreneurs scramble for loose sickles. Goblins know this leverage intimately. They've held it since Gringotts' founding in 1474, post-Soap Blizzard chaos. A unified strike, fueled by wand rights fervour, could topple galleon values overnight, forcing wizards to beg at goblin feet or reinvent finance from scratch. A prospect that keeps ministry desks sweating even in peacetime. Yet beneath these tensions lurks something far more insidious. Fortunes vanishing without trace in the vault's deepest shadows. In the next chapter, we'll unravel the mystery of the missing millions. Those ghostly galleons that slipped Gringotts' grasp and threatened to expose the bank's darkest sleight of hand. That lingering distrust between goblins and wizards has left scars deeper than any vault breach, especially when it comes to the bank's most enigmatic holdings. You've heard whispers of families vanishing into history, their ancient lines snuffed out by curses, duels, or simply the cruel passage of time, leaving behind fortunes no one can claim. What becomes of those piles of galleons, those heirloom artifacts gathering dust in the earth's belly? Tonight, we delve into the heart of it, the mystery of the missing millions. Picture the goblin tellers at Gringotts, their sharp eyes scanning ledgers under the flicker of enchanted lanterns, as they note the extinction of yet another pure bloodline. Over centuries, wizarding families have withered away. The Black family clung on through sheer spite until the 1990s. But others, like the ancient Gaunts or the forgotten Rosier offshoots, faded without a trace. No heirs, no wills filed in the Ministry's dusty archives. Their vaults, carved into the bedrock hundreds of feet below Diagon Alley, sit sealed, wards humming with forgotten spells. Goblins, bound by their ironclad contracts, don't touch a knut unless authorized. But authorization from whom, when the bloodline ends? This is where the true intrigue begins. When a family dies out without a will, the gold doesn't simply vanish into thin air. Gringott's protocols, forged in the bank's founding under Gringott himself back in 1474, dictate that such vaults enter a state of perpetual limbo. The head goblin, always the shadowy figure at the apex, successor to the original, oversees what insiders call the dormant holdings. These aren't advertised. No wizard struts into the marble lobby demanding access to the Potter's vault if Harry himself had no children. Instead, the treasures multiply slowly under anti-theft charms, galleons breeding like flobberworms in the dark, while protective enchantments grow thicker, fed by the bank's own subterranean magic. Yet rumours persist among curse breakers and disgruntled ministry auditors that not all these fortunes stay dormant forever. Deep in the goblin hierarchy, there's talk of a shadow ledger, a forbidden tome bound in dragonhide and inked with basilisk venom, kept locked in the head goblin's private sanctum. This isn't some fairy tale spun in the leaky cauldron. It's a whispered legend among those who've ridden the rickety carts into the depths. The ledger, they say, catalogues every unclaimed vault, tracking not just the gold but the secrets within. Erst heirlooms that whisper to their owners, potions that promise immortality but deliver madness, even fragments of ancient magic predating Hogwarts itself. Consider the case of the Vase line, extinguished in the 1700s after a dueling scandal left their manor in flames. Their vault, number 427, holds an estimated 3 million galleons, plus a chest of silver sickles that multiply unchecked. No will surfaced, no distant cousins emerged with blood claims. Goblins sealed it tighter than a niffler's pouch. But Cursebreaker Tertius, operating in the 1500s under early ministry oversight, noted in his journals that goblin attendants grew uneasy near it, as if the gold itself hungered for release. Fast forward to the 19th century, post-Ranrock's rebellion in the 1890s. When Gringott's vaults were scoured for rebel sympathisers' stashes, Vase gold remained untouched. Yet, tavern talk claims a portion vanished, funneled into goblin coffers under the guise of maintenance fees accrued over centuries. Or take the Lestranges before Bellatrix's fall. Not extinct, but their collateral lines died out in the 1800s from a pox curse. Their secondary vault brimmed with dark artifacts, including a locket that later proved fateful. Without heirs, it should have joined the lost ranks, but the Shadow Ledger allegedly lists it as reallocated, whatever that means in goblin speak. Goblins pride themselves on Fideli Fortius, Quo Fidelius, strength through loyalty. But loyalty to whom when the contract signer is long dead? Wizards suspect the bank siphons these millions to fund their rebellions or craft superior wands denied to them by ministry decree. Goblins counter that unclaimed wealth, the bank's impenetrable security, from troll guards to the Ukrainian iron-belly dragons patrolling the lowest levels. Delve deeper, and the atmospheric weight of these lost vaults presses in. Imagine the chill draft from untravelled tunnels, the faint clink of coins shifting under their own enchantments, the scuffle of leathery wings from hidden caverns. High security measures demand blood verification, but with no bloodline who provides the drop. Some vaults, it's said, have developed their own sentience, repelling even goblin cart operators with illusions of drowning treasure or spectral heirs demanding oaths. During the Second Wizarding War, when Death Eaters commandeered the bank in the 1990s, they pried into a dozen such vaults, seeking Voldemort's hidden caches. Most resisted but one. The remnants of the ancient Peverell vaults yielded a single golden snitch, etched with words that chilled even the Dark Lord's followers. This leads us to the heart of the scandal. investigating the lost vaults of extinct wizarding bloodlines reveals a pattern. Across 500 years, estimates peg unclaimed Gringotts holdings at over 50 million galleons, equivalent to a small nation's treasury. Ministry probes in the 1860s, when control briefly reverted fully to goblins, uncovered discrepancies. Vaults logged as empty that echoed with riches during hasty audits. The head goblin then, Griphook's predecessor, stonewalled inquiries, citing contractual sanctity. Post-war, in the calamity era of the 2010s, unlimited credit lines flowed suspiciously during hunts for fugitives like Gareth Greengrass. Coincidence or shadow ledger loans disguised as generosity? What happens to the gold when a family dies out without a will? Officially, it slumbers eternally, a monument to wizarding hubris. Unofficially, the shadow ledger holds the key, its pages flipping only for the head goblin's eyes, deciding which fortunes fuel goblin ambitions or vanish into the bank's labyrinthine ledgers. Whispers from Cursebreaker trainees in Egypt suggest entries marked Absorbed, where gold merges with Gringott's core reserves, strengthening the very spells that guard it. No wonder the goblin wizard Cold War simmers. Wizards hoard while alive, then haunt the bank in death. As these millions multiply unseen, questions mount about the structures concealing them, the very bones of the bank itself. In Chapter 25, The Architecture of Secrecy, we'll descend into the blueprints of Gringott's underworld, uncovering how its design hides truths that could shatter the wizarding economy forever. Sleep tight as those mysteries unfold. When a wizarding bloodline fades without a will, those lost vaults don't just vanish into thin air, they linger in the deepest recesses of Gringotts, sealed tighter than a dragon's hoard, their contents known only to fragments of the bank's labyrinthine design. You can almost feel the cool marble floors of the Grand Hall giving way to those rickety minecarts, plummeting into darkness where no single goblin, no matter their rank, could ever map the entirety. Gringott sprawls like a living beast beneath Diagon Alley, its surface facade a dazzling white marble palace, masking an underworld engineered for eternal vigilance. From the moment you step past the bronze doors, flanked by those stern goblin tellers, with their hooked noses and ledger books chained to their wrists, the structure begins its quiet deception. The main lobby hums with the clink of galleons and the murmur of hurried wizards, where elevators disguised as rickety carts screech downward on enchanted tracks, twisting through veins of rock that branch endlessly. These tunnels fork and fracture, some plunging thousands of feet to vaults, guarded by fiery chasms, others spiraling into side chambers, where the air grows thick with the scent of ancient enchantments. Damp stone mingled with the faint ozone of protective spells, humming invisibly. No cart rider, no matter how seasoned, traverses the same path twice in full. The rails shift subtly under goblin craft, rerouting based on vault numbers etched in runes that glow faintly in the perpetual gloom. High security levels demand blood verification at glowing thresholds, where a drop from your finger activates mechanisms that only recognize the owner's essence. Deeper still, the network splinters into isolated pockets, nursery vaults for fledgling fortunes, artifact repositories pulsing with restrained magic, and forgotten corners holding the spoils of extinct lines like those we just explored. The physical layout of Gringotts prevents any one person from knowing all its secrets by design. Its corridors curve and double back in impossible geometries, ensuring that even a goblin cart operator, blindfolded by oath and habit, glimpses only slivers of the whole. You've ridden those carts in stories, haven't you? The wind whipping your robes, the sudden drops that leave your stomach behind, each turn a deliberate blind spot. This fragmentation extends beyond stone and rail to the very bones of goblin society. Picture the clans as ancient bloodlines themselves, each wielding specialized crafts honed over centuries of underground toil. The Iron Fist clan dominates the forge vaults, their hammers echoing as they reinforce barriers with metals that defy melting spells. Deep carvers handle the rune-etched tunnels, their chisels etching wards that whisper alarms at the slightest intrusion. Blood wardens oversee the biometric seals, their rituals binding vaults to flesh and lineage alone. Secrets of one clan's domain never cross to another. Oaths sworn on ancestral blades ensure that a deep carver might guard the path to a hoard but never know its treasures, while an iron fist reinforces a door without learning what's behind it. The compartmentalization of information between goblin clans turns Gringotts into a puzzle no individual can assemble. A collective memory where betrayal by one means nothing to the rest, as no single mind holds the full picture. At the apex of this veiled hierarchy sits the chief management goblin, a figure shrouded even from his own kind. Elected from rotating clans every 7 years, he perches in a neutral chamber high above the vaults, accessible only by a singular levitating platform that demands unanimous clan approval to summon. His role in maintaining the bank's neutrality is paramount. He arbitrates disputes between clans without delving into their specifics, vetoing access requests that might consolidate power, and upholding the motto, Fortius quo fidelius, by balancing greed with unbreakable contracts. Whispers say past chiefs have mediated between wizards, demanding audits and clans hoarding leverage, their decisions etched into neutral ledgers that self-destruct after reading, yet even he remains blind to the minutiae. Clans report encoded summaries, vaults true inventories veiled by layers of misdirection. During the Second Wizarding War, when Death Eaters puppeteered the Ministry's grip, it was this office that quietly sabotaged their probes, rerouting carts into dead ends and silencing alarms just long enough for goblin resilience to prevail. Feel the weight of that secrecy pressing down, like the Earth's own breath in those uncharted depths. The multiplying curses in Lestrange's vault during Harry's daring break-in weren't accidents. They were failsafes triggered by cross-clan protocols, treasures swelling to crush intruders while alerting no one prematurely. Ranrock's rebellion in the 1890s fared no better. His forces breached the outer halls, but the clan's silos turned the bank's innards into a maze of false trails, buying time for the pensive guardian to rally defences. Even in peacetime, when ministry overseers like those in the 1500s tried mapping the layout, goblin cart drivers led them in circles, emerging dazed with sketches of nothing but echoes. This architecture isn't mere stonework, it's a philosophy forged in goblin blood, ensuring Gringotts endures as the wizarding world's unbreachable spine. Gold gleams eternally, artifacts hum with forbidden power, and those lost millions from faded families sleep undisturbed, their guardians fragmented across clans and levels. No wizard's vault is ever truly alone, no secret exposed to a single gaze. As we descend further into these shadows, prepare yourself for Chapter 26. Speculative Future, the digital threat, where we explore what happens when Muggle innovations creep toward those ancient vaults, threatening to unravel the Goblin's iron grip in ways no cart or clan could foresee, while the labyrinthine tunnels and clan-divided vaults of Gringotts ensure no single goblin or wizard grasps the bank's full labyrinth of secrets. That very isolation from the Muggle world's relentless march forward leaves the wizarding economy teetering on a precipice few dare to acknowledge. Deep beneath Diagon Alley's gleaming marble facade, aisles of galleons gleam untouched by the invisible currents reshaping global finance. Currents powered by silicon and code that wizards have long dismissed as mere Muggle toys. Consider the wizards' deliberate blindness to electricity, those flickering screens, and the humming servers that underpin the nomage economy. For centuries, they've woven spells to jam radios and scramble compasses, preserving their secrecy. But in doing so, they've built a fortress of gold that's utterly blind to the digital storms brewing just beyond the statute of secrecy. A savvy Muggle hacker, perhaps one embedded in the international wizarding black market, through unwitting exchanges at Gringotts surface counters, could unravel it all without ever setting foot in a vault. Picture lines of code slipping through the ether, targeting the few fragile points where worlds touch. Those currency exchanges where Muggle pounds morph into sickles under Goblin scrutiny. The Wizarding world's lack of technology makes them vulnerable to Muggle cyber attacks in ways that echo the ancient Goblin rebellions, but with stakes far deadlier than wands or swords. Without firewalls or encryption, Gringotts relies on troll muscle and blood wards. Formidable against physical intruders like Harry Potter's daring dragon escape, yet powerless against a distributed denial-of-service assault funneled through Muggle telecoms. Hackers could flood the bank's rudimentary owl post ledgers with phantom transactions, or worse, spoof Goblin signatures via deepfake voices mimicking Gringott himself, siphoning fortunes before the first alarm clangs. Remember the Second Wizarding War, when Death Eaters seized control through brute force. A cyber-op could mimic that invisibly, crashing the galleon rate against the pound by manipulating exchange records, sparking panic buys of potion ingredients and broom polish that empties vaults overnight. This fragility points to a darker horizon. The possibility of a galleon standard collapse in the modern age, where Wizarding gold, once the unassailable bedrock of their economy, crumbles under the weight of invisible algorithms. Tied to physical hoards in Goblin vaults, the galleon floats in a bubble detached from global markets, its value propped by tradition and ministry edicts, rather than supply chains or investor confidence. A coordinated attack, say, no-marge quantum computers cracking the probabilistic spells on vault multipliers, could expose the illusion. Treasures that multiply endlessly under charm might glitch into scarcity, or fabricated ledgers could claim half of Diagon Alley's wealth, vanished in a glitch. Wizards, scrambling with parchment and quills, would watch their sickles evaporate as Muggle fiat surges ahead, unburdened by dragons or duplication curses. Gringott's motto, Fortius quo fidelius, whispers of loyalty forged in ledgers. But what holds when those ledgers are just ink on paper, ripe for digital forgery? Goblins, ever the shrewd craftsmen, sense this shadow. They've bartered Muggle artifacts in hidden bazaars, glimpsing cryptocurrencies that promise decentralization without wizard oversight. Yet their contracts bind them to the old ways, exchanging crisp Muggle notes for clinking coin while the world pivots to blockchain. Whispers in Goblin forges speak of vaults retrofitted with anti-electronic runes. But these are bandages on a hemorrhaging giant, the Ministry, with its history of wresting control. From the 1500s to Voldemort's 1998 coup, others, eyeing a radical pivot. Could Gringotts ever be replaced by a Ministry-run digital currency? Envision it, a Wizcoin, minted not in Goblin fires but on ethereal servers hidden in the Department of Mysteries, backed by the collective magic of registered wizards. No more cart rides into the depths, no blood drops for access, just a one-tap on a charmed smartphone proxy, transactions verified by Fidelius-derived hashes. The Ministry, burned by past Goblin independences like the 1865 handover, might champion this as progress, promising efficiency amid rising Muggle threats. Goblins would rage, their crafting hands idle, contracts shredded in protest, perhaps igniting a new rebellion fiercer than Ranrock's in the 1890s. But trust the Ministry with digital ledgers. Their track record of secrecy breaches, from leaked vault manifests during the Calamity era to the missing millions of extinct bloodlines, breeds doubt. Wizards would flock at first, dazzled by instant transfers for flu fares or fire whiskey shipments, only to discover back doors for surveillance, every knut traced back to the minister's desk. Gringotts endures because Goblins honour pacts, even amid greed. A digital Ministry coin might promise freedom but deliver chains, inflating away fortunes to fund pet projects like expanded Azkaban wards. As these digital spectres loom, they force us to confront the raw underbelly of what drives both Goblin vaults and wizard purses. Up next, in Chapter 27, The Ethics of Greed, we'll peel back the moral rot at Gringotts' core, those untold tales of hoarded heirlooms and betrayed oaths that question if loyalty can ever truly outweigh avarice. While the wizarding world dodges digital disasters through sheer isolation from muggle wires and screens, their ancient economy teeters on a far older fault line, one forged not in code, but in the unyielding grip of gold. Gringotts, that gleaming marble sentinel on Diagon Alley's northern edge, doesn't just guard fortunes. It cradles them in eternal slumber, vaults upon vaults brimming with galleons that haven't seen the light since the reign of kings, long dusted to flue powder. Consider the sheer scale of it. Founded in 1474 by the Goblin Gringott himself, in the grim aftermath of the soap blizzard of 1378 and the bursting of the 14th century wizarding economic bubble. This bank rose as a fortress for wealth that wizards could no longer trust to their own shaky towers or family manors. Goblins, with their fingers honed for crafting the finest wands and blades, despite the ministry's bans on their ownership, offered a pact sealed in their motto. Fortius quo fidelius, strength through loyalty. Wizards poured in their gold, their heirlooms, even cursed artifacts that whispered dark promises in the depths. But what began as a secure haven soon calcified into something far more insidious. Deep beneath those polished halls, where rickety carts scream through torchlit tunnels, guarded by trolls and spells that multiply treasures into fiery infernos, lies the heart of wizarding avarice. Families like the Malfoys or the Black lineage amassed vaults that could fund 1,000 revolutions, yet they let the coins sit idle, generation after generation. Why? Because Gringotts makes hoarding effortless. No need to invest, to circulate, to risk. Your key, or a drop of your blood, unlocks a chamber where time halts, where galleons gleam untouched amid piles of sickles and nuts that could rebuild Hogsmeade from ash. This is no mere bank. It's a mausoleum for money, preserving wealth while the world above creaks under poverty's shadow. Picture the Weasleys, scraping by in the burrow, while pure blood vaults swell with artifacts from Merlin's era. Spells encoded in goblets that could heal the sick or summon storms. Wizards hoard not out of necessity, but philosophy, a twisted creed where possession proves power. Gringotts enables this ethic of greed. Its goblin tellers enforcing contracts with ironclad precision, doling out just enough liquidity for Diagon Alley trinkets, but never challenging the stagnation. Loans, rare as phoenix tears. Investments, laughable in a society blind to compound interest or trade beyond nocturne shadows. The bank hoards the hoarder's secrets, its labyrinthine depths, ensuring no single goblin or wizard knows the full tally of buried billions. And here's the cruel poetry. Gringotts mirrors the darkest impulses of both its masters and its makers. Wizards, drunk on supremacy, stash away power they fear to wield, like Voldemort's Horcrux in the Lestrange vault, a soul shard rotting amid multiplying gold until Harry, Ron, and Hermione shattered the illusion with polyjuice deceit and a dragon's desperate flight. Goblins, stereotyped as miserly, craft the unbreachable spells, imperious on their own kin to thwart thieves, yet revel in the precise ledgers that bind wizards to endless deposits. Ranrock's rebellion in the 1890s, storming vaults for ancient magic with Belgruff at his side, exposed this mutual venom. Goblins resent their role as eternal custodians. Wizards dread the day those claws reclaim what's ours. This hoarding philosophy oaks the magical society it claims to sustain. Innovation withers. When breakthroughs demand funding, Gringott won't freely lend. The ministry seized control in the 1500s, uneasy with goblin sway, only to relinquish it in 1865 after centuries of simmering distrust. Yet the pattern repeats, from Death Eater hijackings in the 1990s to wartime credit sprees in the Calamity era. Vaults bulge with lost bloodline fortunes, those missing millions from extinct families, gathering dust while Hogwarts tuition soars and St. Mungo's rations potions. Goblins facilitate it all, their loyalty a velvet glove over a fist of resentment, crafting compartments where no clan knows another's secrets, ensuring the stagnation endures. The bank's marble facade gleams under Diagon's perpetual twilight, but peer closer and you see the reflection. Wizards clutching galleons like lifelines. Goblins etching contracts that perpetuate the cycle. What if this ethic of greed isn't just personal vice, but the very spellbinding progress? Potions evolve at a snail's pace. Broomsticks iterate on Nimbus designs from decades past, all because wealth sleeps rather than stirs the cauldron of change. As we descend these final depths together, prepare yourself for Chapter 28, the final truth. What ultimate secret does Gringotts conceal that could shatter this gilded prison forever? Stay with me and you'll uncover it all. That hoarding instinct we've explored, the way Gringotts lot away wizarding wealth and lets society fester in place, traces back through centuries of a relentless pattern. Founded in 1474 by the Goblin Gringott, right after the soap blizzard of 1378 shattered the wizarding economic bubble, this gleaming marble fortress on Diagon Alley's north side promised security in chaos. Goblins, with their unyielding grip on contracts, turned it into a vault for gold, heirlooms, and artifacts that no wizard could trust each other to guard. You can almost hear the clatter of the first carts plunging into those labyrinthine depths, rails twisting through torchlit tunnels, where the air grows thick and cool, carrying the faint metallic tang of untouched galleons. But wizards, ever wary of goblin cunning, couldn't stomach that power for long. By the 1500s, the Ministry of Magic seized control, their fingers wrapping around the ledgers. After roughly 400 years of goblin stewardship, it wasn't just oversight, it was a quiet conquest, born from the same fears that banned goblins from owning wands. Imagine curse breakers like Tertius navigating those halls under wizard edicts, the goblins' motto, Hortius quo fidelius, strength through loyalty, twisted into a reminder of who held the keys. The ministry ran the show, doling out access to vaults protected by charmed coins that multiplied like flames, trolls lumbering at the gates, and spells that bound goblin minds under Imperius. That grip loosened in 1865, when the ministry handed full reins back to the goblins amid whispers of reform. Yet the peace was fragile, a truce etched in goblin-forged steel. Tension simmered, fueled by old discriminations, goblins crafting wands finer than Ollivanders, only to be denied their use. Rebellions flared, like in the 1890s during the Hogwarts Legacy era, when goblin renegade Ranrock stormed a vault with his ally Belgruff. Hunting ancient magic that pulsed with forbidden power, they slaughtered a banker, their rage echoing off white marble walls. But the pensive guardian repelled them. Gringotts itself standing against the uprising, it was control snatched, rebellion crushed, and an uneasy peace restored. Vaults sealed tighter, dragons like the Ukrainian Ironbelly coiled deeper below. The cycle spun on through the 20th century. In the 1990s, during the Second Wizarding War, Voldemort's shadow fell heavy after Albus Dumbledore's death. Death Eaters infiltrated, the ministry bending to his will, reclaiming Gringotts for their blood-soaked coffers. Goblins managed security under duress, funds funneled to dark causes until Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger's audacious break-in at the Lestrange vault. Polyjuice to mimic, Imperius on a goblin, treasures erupting in fiery cascades. They fled on that dragon's thrashing wings, alarms shrieking through the caverns. Voldemort fell. Goblins reclaimed their domain, but the scars lingered. Blood-verified keys, compartmentalized clans guarding secrets no single soul could map. Even in the Calamity era, post-2010s, Gringotts extended unlimited credit to wizards chasing unforgivables like Gareth Greengrass, their marble doors swinging for the desperate. This rhythm, wizards imposing control when goblin autonomy threatens, goblins rebelling against chains of prejudice, then settling into an uneasy peace of mutual dependence, defines the bank's pulse. Each handover a tremor in the earth, each uprising a roar from the depths, each truce a locked vault humming with guarded silence. Beneath it all lies the ultimate revelation. Gringotts isn't just a bank, it's a cage for the wizarding world's sins. Those vaults don't merely hoard gold. They entomb the darkness wizards unleash and then bury. Helga Hufflepuff's cup, twisted into a Horcrux by Voldemort's fractured soul, festered there amid Lestrange treasures, a vessel of murder shielded by dragonfire. Ranrock sought ancient magic, raw forces that could unravel reality, locked away because no one dared wield them. Lost vaults of extinct bloodlines swallow millions in forgotten galleons, echoes of family greeds unresolved. While Muggle money exchanges upstairs mask the rot below, goblins, loyal to the letter of every pact, guard these abominations not out of choice, but because wizards demand it. Paying in prejudice for the privilege of hiding their shame, the architecture enforces it. No goblin knows every tunnel, every multiplying curse or troll patrol, ensuring sins stay fractured and unseen. Wealth obsession breeds secrecy, power struggles ignite distrust. And through it all, Gringott stands as the wizarding conscience's blind vault, facilitating stagnation by preserving what should decay. Horcruxes, forbidden artifacts, hoarded fortunes. They multiply like the enchantments in high-security depths, feeding a society too greedy to release them. And so those towering marble doors, veined with enchantments that gleam under Diagon Alley's lanterns, will always remain open. Wizards flock back, compelled by the weight of their purses and the shadows they cast, unable to sever the lifeline to their past. Goblins, bound by ancient Fidelius, welcome them with sharp smiles and sharper contracts, knowing rebellion simmers but peace pays the bills. Close them, and the sins spill into the light. Leave them ajar, and the cycle endures. Gringotts endures. The wizarding world endures, chained to its own cage. Thank you for journeying through these hidden truths with me tonight. Sleep well. What did you think of this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this changed your perspective or taught you something new, consider subscribing for more mind-expanding content. And if you know someone who would find this as fascinating as you did, share it with them. These are the kind of conversations that matter.